now come to order for October 21st, 2021. And this morning, I think Mr. Dingfelder has the invocation. You see him at the podium there. Morning, sir.
Today. Mr. Chairman, I am so honored to present Sherry Silk. I think we all know Sherry, but I'll introduce her for the viewing audience. Sherry is the CEO of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay. She's worked in animal welfare for over 35 years, and we were lucky enough to get her here in Tampa.
Mr. Dingfelder, are we doing the invocation first, sir?
Yes, I am. I'm introducing Sherry as the invoker.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir. All right.
No problem. Anyway, 15 years ago, we were lucky enough to drag Sherry down from the colds of Michigan to Tampa, and she's been in charge of the Humane Society ever since. Prior to becoming the CEO of the Humane Society of Tampa Bay, she was operations manager and investigator for the Michigan Humane Society in Detroit. In this capacity, she appeared on Animal Planet's Animal Cops for several years. I didn't know you were a star there, Sherry. And she's also worked for the National ASPCA as an outreach manager. She's served on the board of the Florida Association.
Felder.
Here.
Citro.
Yes.
Vieira.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
And Goods.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. Mr. Shelby, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of Tampa City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. As the chair has stated, today's meeting of the Tampa City Council is being conducted with a live in-person quorum of City Council present here in City Council chambers. However, in light of the continuing COVID-19 issued health standards or guidance now in effect, the members of the public have the ability to participate virtually through video teleconferencing referred to by Florida statutes and rules as communications media technology. The public and the citizens of Tampa are able to watch, listen, and view this meeting on Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and on the internet at tampa.gov/live stream. There have been listed in the notice of today's meeting and also on the City Council's link on its webpage at tampa.gov/city council, one word, the alternate means available to the public to communicate with City Council regarding the city business that it's going to be conducting today. And again, those instructions, such as by written comment by email or by U.S. mail or by CMT, are available for pre-registration with regard to the CMT. And to explain that, if those who are going to want to participate remotely, the requirement is that they pre-register to get that login information on the GoToMeeting platform. And a reminder that in order to participate in quasi-judicial matters via CMT, cell phones and smartphones are not compatible, as they will not allow the public to share their camera when connected. So with regard to presently, under Council's policies, the general public comment is done audio only, and that can be done by phone, but for quasi-judicial it does require video participation. Now, if the members of the public who want to participate but don't have access to CMT remotely, what they can do is they can come here to Old City Hall, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, on the second floor, where we have made available to the public communications media technology for people to be able to participate. I'm going to ask people on the second floor, please, for purposes of courtesy to the council and to the public, that they remain quiet on the second floor, particularly when there are speakers at the kiosk. Also, with regard to the GoToMeeting platform, the chat box is not to be used to communicate with City Council. It is only used to be communicating technical issues if there are any. The comments related to today's matters have been distributed to City Council, and with that in mind, Council, consistent with your policy, I ask that you waive the rules to adopt the CMT as set forth today.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Mr. Citro has moved it. Mr. Maniscalco, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, gentlemen, let's look at the approval of the agenda. Mr. Shelby, I know there's a bunch of house cleaning we have to do this morning, sir.
Well, Council, I'm familiar with item number 40. that is regarding the plan amendment, comprehensive plan amendment procedures manual. So if we could just have that pulled for discussion, and I understand that I've had the opportunity to talk with Jennifer Malone and David Hay from the Planning Commission staff. They will be available for council. If council takes it up later on, Danny Collins is available this morning. But that is asked to be pulled for discussion and council direction. And also, council, I believe I've learned that when we get to staff reports, we can discuss the items under staff reports. To my knowledge, council, I'm not aware of any other additions, deletions, substitutions, other than what's been presented on the agenda. There is no addendum. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chairman?
Wait, point of order, point of order. Mr. Shelby has the floor. Madam Deputy Clerk, will you respond?
What's that question again?
An addendum, there is no addendum for today's agenda.
Correct. I did not have any additional items to add to the addendum.
Okay, thank you. So if there's any changes to the consent docket, if anybody wanted to pull any items, I'm not aware of any.
Mr. Carlson had his hand up, and then I saw Mr. Dingfelder raise his hand. You're recognized, sir.
Yes, sir. I would just like to pull item number 35 just for separate vote and comment. I don't need staff. And then also number 84, staff has requested that we continue it for 6 months. So I would like to move that item 84 be moved to staff reports on April 21st, 2022. 84. That's the Tampa Union Station. They want another 6 months to wait until COVID clears more before they put out an RFP. So this would just be getting them to give us an update on where they are at that point.
All right, Mr. Carlson has moved that. Mr. Maniscalco, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Again, that date, please. That's the workshop date.
April 21, 2022. Is it a workshop or?
April 21 is a regular session. Is that a staff report then?
Yeah, staff report.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, sir. And that was item 35 to be pulled. All right, anything else, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized, Mr. Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize, I didn't get a memo out yesterday. Item 11. I'd like to pull that and include a staff representative from TPD. It's not a bad thing, actually. I talked to them yesterday, but I think it's something worth talking about.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, item 12 travels with that.
That'd be fine.
all right. All right, also, Mr. Dingfelder is gonna skip ahead. He's gonna do his which is item 4. He will be number 1. Well, it'll be 4, but he will go first for the ceremonial since he's already down there. He has a little injury. We don't want to walk him back and forth, so he's already down there. All right, move to approve.
Mr. Chairman, if we can.
Someone talk? Did I hear someone, staff, maybe?
Mr. Chair,
Who's?
This is Commendation from the City Attorney's Office.
You're recognized.
Ah, yes.
Hi, I would like to, I've spoken already to Mr. Shelby regarding item number 59. And I believe Mr. Cotton is also on the line. This item is on the agenda to set a review hearing for DE 1-21-216.
If I can,
And
Mr.
if Mr. Cotton,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to apologize, Ms. Pettis-Mackle, that I did overlook that number 59. And it is appropriate for you to bring that up now because it is on the consent docket, and as we discussed, you had the opportunity to discuss that with me. I'd like you to bring that to council's attention. If you don't mind, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, respectfully, again, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. In speaking with staff, we're asking that item number 59 not be scheduled for a review hearing. And Mr. Cotton is present to give more clarification to council regarding why this should not be scheduled for a review hearing.
Ms. Cotton, you're recognized.
Morning, Council. Eric Cotton, Development Coordination. Item number 59 is DE 1-21-216 for property at 2109 West Spruce Street. The property is an illegal lot. It was created illegally. They had originally applied for a formal decision in 2020 to split it. I withdrew that application, telling them that the lot was too small to be split administratively. They needed to go through a plan development process to try to create the two lots. They went ahead and went to the property appraiser and split the property anyway, got new folio numbers, received new addresses, and we're going through the permitting process. It really needs to be removed from council's agenda. They need to come back in as a PD to accomplish what they want to accomplish.
All right, motion to remove.
So move.
Mr. Miranda has moved it. Ms. Maniscalco, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Councilor.
Granted.
Thank you,
Chair.
council.
All right.
Chairman,
motion-
did you, before you approve the agenda, did you want to go over the staff reports to see which members of staff can be?
Next on my mind, Mr. Shelby, you beat me to it, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, we have administrative updates. I think Chief Bennett will talk about COVID for item 83. We've already took care of item 84. Item 85. I think they're gonna need to appear for that. 86
Is a request?
can be continued, all right?
Does council want to take up that request now? To continue that per the memorandum of Chief Brian Dugan?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're gonna take them all, I mean, yeah, all right. Let's go, we'll get back to, item number 6 is up for continuance. Item number 87, so continuance. Mr. Shelby, you recognize.
My suggestion, council, is while we're doing the approval of the agenda, if council's intention is to continue it, just do it by motion now and just let's take it off the agenda, if that's
We
possible.
need a date to continue, or unless you want indefinitely.
It
The
says
one,
November 4th.
November
All
4th.
right, item number 66, motion to continue.
So move.
Mr. Miranda's moved it. Maniscalco, second, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. Item number 87, motion to
moved.
continue.
Second.
Mr. Miranda has moved it. Citro has seconded. All in favor?
And Mr. Chairman, if we
Yes,
could just
sir, you
announce that
recognize.
date, that's under staff reports for November 4th as well of 2021. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, item number 88. I think Mr. Carlos Dingfeld, the motion for this. Do you want them here to talk about this, sir? All
Yes,
right.
please.
Item number 89, Mr. Shelby, we're going to talk about that when we get to that, correct, sir?
Yes.
All right.
Well,
there's
we,
some-
well, and I don't know if
You
staff.
want to deal with that now,
Well,
sir?
let me see if staff is online. Is
That
staff?
way we can deal with
is-
that now and get that out the way.
I see Ms. Post. Good morning.
Good morning. Is there a question about 89?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, my understanding, I spoke with Ms. Dock this morning with regard to this on the timeline. We can discuss this if you want to hear where you are when it stands, but my understanding is that the actual language that is going to be forwarded to the Planning Commission has not been presented to council, and council has not had the opportunity to review it prior to it being sent to the Planning Commission. My understanding is the public is not aware of it because it hasn't been uploaded to today's agenda relative to this particular item number. So my suggestion would be, in order to apprise council in advance of the item as it goes to the Planning Commission, as well as to inform the public, that it be continued briefly, and I believe Ms. Dock had talked about November 4th as a staff report. It might be able to be done by then. Do you wish to comment at all, Ms. Post?
Sure, thank you, Marty, Chair and Council. Carol Post, Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. So the presentation today is more in the form of a workshop. The council has not seen this presentation yet, nor has staff received consensus direction from City Council about the path we want to take relative to this proposal. So that is the objective for today's presentation, is to simply present the concepts, the proposal and the recommendation, and to ensure that we have consensus direction from the council before we move forward to draft an ordinance.
Shelby?
In light of that, Mr. Chairman, my recommendation is that you hear the presentation.
All right, sir. So we'll hear the presentation later on. Thank you, Ms. Post. All right,
While I have you, Chair.
yes, sir.
Thank you. Just one question, one clarifying question on item number 35, Councilman Carlson. I heard, what I heard was he was pulling it, but saying he did not need a staff report, just a separate vote. Could I just get clarification on that?
Yeah, I just would like to have a separate vote and comment. I don't need staff. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right. Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Mr. Vieira has moved it. Mrs. Miranda second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Mr. Dingfellow, open for business, sir. Item number 4.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of City Council, I am so pleased and honored to be presenting commendation to I've been practicing it, Arion Knighton and his family. As I'm sure everybody recalls, Aaron was our hero this summer when he was at the Summer Olympics and representing Tampa, representing the United States, and I remember just cheering. I was so proud. Anyway, today we have his grandma over here, and we got his mom over here, and we got his AAU coach over here taking pictures. So let me read this commendation, and we'll hear a few words from Aaron. All right, Aaron, in recognition of your hard work and dedication that's led to your amazing athletic achievements, you broke the under 18 200-meter record, which was set before you were born. And in June 2021, you broke the under 20 record. You reached your goal of making the 2020 USA Men's Olympic Track and Field Team and becoming the youngest athlete to do so since 1964. While competing in the Tokyo Summer Olympics, you became the youngest American to place in the top 4 of any individual event since 1928. Wow. You are an Olympic athlete, a professional runner, and still a fantastic student at Hillsborough High School. You are truly a marvel, and the citizens of Tampa and this City Council are so very proud of you. It's our pleasure to present you this commendation on the 21st of October, 2021. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so you got a couple of words for us. Oh, and I just wanted to say, I was asking Mother over here. I said, when did you realize he was going to be a track and field runner? And she said, the minute he was toddling, he was just running all over the house, just running back and forth. So this has been an ongoing thing since you were a little baby.
Yes, sir. Hi there. Oh my God. Anyways, yeah. First off, I would like to say thankful to be presented this award, recognition from the City Council, and I was proud to represent the city of Tampa, my high school, Hillsborough, in Hillsborough County, and that's it.
Fantastic.
Any council members today would like to speak? I see hands up already. You see what I'm saying? Mr. Vieira, let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to say congratulations. Thank you, Councilman Dingfelder, for bringing this forward. And it's good to see you here, sir, and your family, your mother and your grandmother. That's so just a really, really wonderful thing. As a parent, I know that when your son or your daughter, your child works so hard for something and they achieve it, no matter what it is, it just means a lot. So just congratulations to all of y'all, and you have your whole life ahead of you, and you're going to see a lot of good things. Thank you.
Mr. Maniscalco.
Well, congratulations, and we're certainly all very proud of you. I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've broken Usain Bolt's one of his records, correct?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. That's incredible. So we're very proud of you, and we're really honored that you're here with us today, and that you're part of our community, and that you took the time out of your schedule to come here, and that we were able to recognize you with this commendation. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson.
Thank you for making our community proud. You know, we talk about Tampa Bay, but it's not just the professional sports teams. It's also all the athletes like you who make us proud every day, from high school to college to Olympics. So thank you. And we expect that you're going to continue making good grades and going to do really well in your future. And my son was a runner. He didn't quite make it to where you are. But if you end up running or doing something else, please don't forget us if we can help you in your path. And we hope you come back and help make Tampa a great success once you graduate. Thank you so much.
Citro.
Thank you very much. Thank you for representing not only your school, your city, but your country with distinction. Thank you very much.
Miranda.
Ariana, you remember the old faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. And I'm not talking about Superman.
Ariane, the only advice I can give you, make sure you get a great attorney that knows what he's doing and a great personal individual to find you the endorsements, because in the future, you're going to have a very bright future, and I don't want you to give it away to anyone. It's your mind, your set, your grandmother, your mother, all your family members who will help you get what you're at. And however, at the end, it was your basic training and the miles and miles and miles and mental exhaustion that you've been through to get where you're at. I just want to make sure you don't give it away to somebody that's slick with a pen. Thank you very much for what you've done for your country. You have made Hillsborough High School proud, the city of Tampa proud, Hillsborough County and Florida proud. Congratulations to you, young man. You got a bright future. God bless you.
Well, you don't know how proud I am to sit as the chairman and to have you before me to get an honor like this, that you make the world pay attention. The world. Everyone knows your name, knows you're the guy from Tampa, Florida. It's a big honor with a lot of responsibility. Like Mr. Miranda said, you don't hang around fools. You stay around people who are successful, and you listen. You don't let anybody take your money. You always watch your money. That's what he was trying to tell you. I'm just going to tell you bluntly. You always watch your money. Don't let nobody watch your money. That way you'll have money. I know Mr. Miranda, he wants me to move this docket, but I feel some kind of way. I got one of my championship rings on today. It's championship day, Mr. Miranda. But Mr. Dingfeld, I've got to do this because this is a momentous moment for this council and for the city. Mr. Dingfeld, I need you to just bring Mr. Oren up to the city council and take a picture behind our seal right here. I think that's appropriate for this young man to ever always have a memorial picture in his house for this council and for himself. So I'd like you to bring him up to council and take a photo with the council members behind the seal, sir.
It'll be my honor, Mr. Chairman. Just to keep things moving, you want to do the next one, and then I'll be on my way up with them.
Is Debbie down there?
Yes, she is.
All right, I'll talk from here, and then I'll.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Citro. Thank you, Mr. Citro.
Oh, the battery's good.
The battery's good, but I don't have to shout the password out.
There's Miss Debbie.
Good morning, Chairman.
All right, all right.
She made it, all right. I'm here to present a commendation to the.
Miss Debbie, go to the mic, please.
The microphone.
There you
okay.
go.
All right.
This is my aide, Miss Debbie. She's going to make the presentation this morning.
Okay. I'm here to present a commendation to Hillsborough House of Hope. Tampa City Council proudly recognized Hillsborough House of Hope for providing a support system for women transitioning out of correctional institutions and seeking positive reinforcement that aids in their personal, social, and professional rehabilitation. Established in 1998, Hillsborough House of Hope addressed the immediate essential needs for women in transition, such as living accommodations, individual and group therapy, and job assistance. Women in participate in the Hillsborough House of Hope program are presented with the opportunity to seek the healing process in a safe environment dedicated to helping them make progress and achieve success. The Tampa City Council proudly presents this accommodation to Hillsborough House of Hope for being a beacon of hope for so many women living in the Tampa Bay area and for helping formerly incarcerated women become the person God created them to be. Signed by all 7 council members, presented this day, the 21st day of October, 2021. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hillsborough House of Hope is truly honored today to receive this award through the City Council office. And we just want to say thank you for being recognized and just keep helping us volunteering to make it go further. Thank you so much.
Who do you have with you this morning?
This is Linda Walker, the Executive Director of Hillsborough House of Hope.
Who are the ladies behind you?
The ladies behind me are board members. Come on. Just, Michelle, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michelle Klusker. I've been with Hillsborough House of Hope for the past 3 years. I'm about to become vice president of the board, and I'm happy to help the women in the community and do all we can. Thank you so much for the award.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Tu Mai. I'm a recent board member, and I want to thank everybody for the recognition for Hillsborough House of Hope.
Gentlemen, let me tell you about this award that I gave this morning. I was able to go to their program. They had several months ago invited to say a few words. And when I looked into the audience, I was able to see some of the women that I had possibly incarcerated before. And it was impactful to see the change that come into their life. And to have this program, to have a person when they leave those gates of the prison, it's a transition, and you have to be ready to what's what I call a kid with a cookie jar, and they've been fiending for those cookies forever, and now you let them out, and now it's this new life again. It's a new life for them, and this place helps them to get that life moving in the right direction, and that's why I felt so heart-driven to make sure that I understood the process, and I wanted to make sure they recognize what they're doing is very invaluable to this community. So that's why I wanted this award. Any comments from anyone, gentlemen? Mr. Maniscalco, you recognize.
Quick, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for, and just as the name of your organization says, hope, giving hope to women in this community, to helping them transition back into life, regular routine, lifting them up, showing them that there's a brighter future. I think that we all need to understand how important that is and the work that you do in this community. I believe in second chances and forgiveness. I always say it, but we have to be there for one another, lift one another up, give a helping hand to help folks move forward, to live a good, positive, happy life. So again, thank you very much
Anyone
for
else?
all you do.
Mr. Vieira, I see your buzzer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this forward. We thank you for all that y'all do. I've been having the great pleasure of working with some great local organizations like A. Brown Ministries and trying to get a reentry program here in the Tampa area, and I'd love to meet with y'all on that important topic. I think I've heard you say this, Mr. Chairman, which is you don't know what you don't know. And I always tell people, as a kid growing up in the suburbs, you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know that a lot of the assumptions that a lot of people make and that we can make about returning citizens and people, leaving prison, et cetera, are not just unproductive, they're not just harmful for family, but they come from bias, they come from a level of social bigotry and whatnot. And those are things that we all have to overcome, one person at a time and one government policy at a time. So just thank y'all for what y'all do. It's really God's work. And I mean that. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for bringing this forward.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, ladies, thank you for helping stop that revolving door. You are giving women a path, a guide to getting out of the trouble that they have been surrounded in and helping them to lead a great life. God bless you all.
Thank Ms. Miranda, then we'll go with the Carlson.
Thank you very much. To all of you who are in this program at Hillsborough House of Hope, I want to thank each and every one, those that are board of directors, those are the leaders, and those that give the advice. The only advice we're going to give to you, or I am anyway, is try to get them all registered to vote, restore their rights from the first day all the way through, and thank God bless you for what you're doing. Everyone deserves a second chance. Thank you very much.
Mr. Carlson.
No, I just wanted to thank you all. A lot of times people think government can solve all problems, and the great thing about the United States is all the volunteerism, and thank you to board members and past board members and volunteers for everything you're doing to solve these important issues. And we hope that more like you will join you and help to continue to make our community and our country greater. Thank you.
All right, Miss Debbie, have them wait on the second floor for me by the stairs, and I'll be down there shortly. Okay. Mr. Dingfellow, we're ready, sir. All right, gentlemen.
They better be in the picture. Without them, there'd be no district runner.
Good morning.
Congratulations, my man. Thank God for what you do. Keep doing it. You're more important than I am.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Let's scooch across.
Well, I know we can count to three then.
Tim was thinking to me.
Tell us the question.
I told you about Citrus camera.
Oh, Lord.
See that?
It wouldn't zoom out.
There we go. Right here. 1, 2. 1, 2.
All right.
Congratulations.
Mr. Dingfellow, you got,
You should have gone to Jefferson. Well,
nope.
Should have gone to Leto.
I'm gonna go down to for the ladies. You take over for Mr. Carlson. Mr. Carlson's.
I don't know who's going there.
Mr. Carlson's next.
Citrus.
It's me.
Yep. No, I'm just gonna take a photo. He's gonna take over. He's gonna take a photo of Charles. We got 4.
Did you write it down? Do you want to keep it?
Item number 2, scratch.
We go to number 3.
We did 1, Joe. Charlie, okay. We do. All right. The folks are heading downstairs to give the next commendation.
Mr. Chair, are we ready?
Absolutely. Mr. Carlson, you are recognized. You
Thank
have the Team USA women's softball folks.
Yep, we're here to recognize Coach Ken Erickson, and he's got a whole entourage behind him, including folks from USF and also his sister, Beth Shoup. Wave. And thank you to her for putting us in touch
I
with
kind of recognize that lady in the middle there.
Hey, Council.
We just want to commend Tampa's own Ken Erickson, manager of the silver medal winning 2020 team USA women's softball team in Tokyo. Ken's devotion to the sport not only for his work with Team USA, but also as head coach to the University of South Florida softball, where he recently became one of the few coaches to win more than 1,000 games. Ken's historic career includes 6 World Cup of softball, 2 ISF, and 2 Pan American game wins for Team USA, and 8 conference titles with the USF Bulls. It is the honor of Tampa City Council to present Ken with this commendation on this day. And we have a special guest, as you identified, she has lots of titles, but today I'll call her former USF President, Betty Castor.
It's great to be here and to have an opportunity to thank Ken Erickson in Tampa at your university, USF, for his wonderful, wonderful career. I'm here with Michael Kelly, the tall guy behind me, who is the Vice President for Athletics at USF, as well as Ken's dad, Bob, wave Bob, and others in his family. Ken has been a wonderful coach. You've heard in the commendation about his many accomplishments, but I'm here to tell you that in addition to what you heard, he is the real thing. He has had such an impact on his players over the year, it's just hard to imagine. He's a hardworking guy, but in addition to coaching his students and looking out for their academic pursuits, he cares about them as young women, and he cares about their families. I'm also here in part to say that USF is very interested in all of our female athletes. I'm part of a group called the Stampede for Women, and Abby Ritter is in the back. She counsels us along with Lalo Prado, who is hiding. Our goal with the Stampede is simply to support our female athletes, our teams, and especially our coaches. And in that regard, we thought this was a most appropriate time to make a lasting memorial in Ken's honor, and I would like to call Michael Kelly to do the honors. Michael?
Thank you, Betty, and thank you, Councilman Carlson, for this honor for Coach Erickson. And in the spirit of what Betty was just saying, in the spirit of our Stampede for Women and continuing opportunities for women student athletes at the University of South Florida, Ken, you don't know this, but family and friends in this room and well beyond throughout the country have established in your honor a special Ken Erickson Olympic Endowment Fund that will supply scholarships for female student athletes in the sport of softball forevermore in your honor. So congratulations.
I should say real fast, thank you to Chair Goots for allowing us to do this. This is something that Coach Erickson had no idea was going to happen this morning, and it's a great honor. 2 honors in one day. Anyway, thank you.
Chairman and council members, I had something to speak about before I just got this, but it's blown me away. That's well beyond the spectrum of my thoughts right now, but to have my family, from friends that I met here when I came in the fall of '79 to go to school at the University of South Florida, to professors, to administrators, and there's a reason I'm still here is because of Betty Castor. Kathy Betancourt, who told me she was proud of me today, which goes beyond the realm of even the awards. But my sisters, Beth and Felice, and my dad, Bob and Diana, this is a special deal, and Councilman Carlson, I couldn't thank you enough for this recognition. But to represent Tampa on a worldwide stage in the Olympics twice, and to be part of a community since 1979, to be accepted by the people here. Every time I fly back into Tampa, being all over the world, 38 different countries, I fly back in here and it's like I'm back home. I'm in Tampa, I'm not going anywhere. I love this place, I've been here, and hope to finish whatever I've started here, and I know I will. But thank you for the award, both awards, but I'm humbled. And to be even in the same room as Arion today, he's the future of athletics in Tampa. I'm in the 4th quarter. I just don't know when the 2-minute warning is, so, but thank you very much.
All right, any council members? Mr. Vieira, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Carlson, for bringing this forward. And Coach, you obviously have a very full level of support, a full family life, many, many friends who care about you, and you're also respected in the community for what you've done. So we just thank you for all your work. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, talking about women's sports, the great Babe Zaharias, that has such a great, and I see a lot of heads nodding, such a great trailblazer in so many ways, and just a remarkable woman, and we're lucky to have a city golf course named after her, where we always honor women's sports and the bravery and the courage that those trailblazers took generations ago and still take today, and led by great people like you. So we thank you for all of your work and leadership, and I'll always have to salute as well Betty Castor. God bless you. We love you, ma'am, and you all have a great one. And again, sir, congratulations. Thank you.
Ms. Maniscalco, you're recognized.
Well, as a proud USF graduate, congratulations. Thank you. Again, the spotlight is on Tampa. Thank you and all the champions. And, Betty Castor's here. I saw her pop out, and what an honor it is to have her and all of you. And again, every day I'm proud to be a USF Bull. Today is just another one of those days. And again, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Citro, you're
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You are surrounded by some really great people. in association with USF. You got Kathy Betancourt, I see back in the back there, and of course, Betty Castor. USF started quite a few years ago, and with your help, you've made your mark on that wonderful higher learning institution. But I gotta say, Coach, you know, without you, those girls might have been throwing the ball all over the field and running to different bases. Those girls were great, they performed well, but it's the coaching that directs the team. Thank you for your great coaching, and as always, go Bulls.
Mr. Dingfeld, I see you got your USF pin on.
I
there,
do.
so
I
the
do.
pin on,
You know, as I mentioned,
Championship day today, you know?
as I mentioned to Betty and Kathy downstairs, you know, I'm a hardcore Gator, but today I'm a Bull. So congratulations.
All right, Mr. Loret.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coach Ken Erickson, thank you for what you've done. You know, today is the Day of Champions. We've had the young man who set all the Olympic records for his age, and now we have yourself. And the only thing I can say is you have little Prado back there, and they missed him, and he might be small in stature, but high in ability. And he had one problem growing up. He had two coaches which he never had, his father and myself. And the difference in winning and losing is not how much contract extension you have or how much money you have as a player, but the chemistry among the players and the desire, listen to this, not the desire to win, but the desire not to lose. And that carries you to another level. And I know you played with guys that I played with. You had a shortstop who led the league in everything, including eras. And his name is Wayne Vigil. You had a catcher with the Bombers that led the league in pass balls, and it was Bucky De La Torre. And I'm only joking about those guys. They have championship rings. I have nothing. But I appreciate the ability to mention their names, that I was honored to play with them like you are with everyone that you coached became a star. Maybe not on the field, but they became a better citizen because you told them about life, not about the game itself. It's real easy to lose a game. You have to have chemistry and the desire not to lose to win a game. And you taught that to all your students, all the players that you had during your life, and courageous individual that you are. Thank you for what you are, and God bless you and your family.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Miranda, you are a superstar. Been a superstar for this community for decades. So you are a champion for the city.
We try.
But, you know, we both have coached. That's why I say it's championship day. I brought one of the championship rings out on my finger today. I knew it was championship day. It's great to be a champion. Tampa is a city of champions. Coach, you've done a marvelous job with your programs. You've got a history of doing what you need to do. But, you know, I tell people, Mr. Miranda said, winning isn't everything. You know, Lombardi always said it's everything, but really it's not everything. It's about what you get out of the players. To say, where did my players go? What did they do? And to sit down at a restaurant like I do sometimes and see those kids come back and say, hey, Coach, this is my family. This is what I do. See, that's the experience I get the joy to say I was inspirational in someone's life. So I know that's what you've done throughout the years. You'll continue to do that. I see your sister hiding behind you back there, you know. She's always in my ear, but love her to death. And again, congratulations today for both accolades.
Thank you very much. The wisdom of this council is beyond my thoughts, which I appreciate all of the things. One person always in everybody's life that brings it together, and I'm sure in this council the same thing, and it's like our utility player that we can always rely on. Barbara Sparks McGlinchey is that person for all of us here. She hired me. She's been a great counsel for my entire life, and I just want to make sure that she was recognized today also.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much.
Great.
All right, I think we have Mr. Citro up next.
Thank you very much. Gracias, señora. Mr. Chair and City Council members, I am proud to present to you Mr. Mark Skolnick. And he is the immediate past district governor of District 6890. Ladies and gentlemen, I could spend hours here talking about the great things that Rotary does. Not only the local clubs, districts, but more especially, what Rotary does internationally. I could talk about the clean water that Rotary helps provide underdeveloped nations. But today we're here to talk about the eradication of polio. And we've almost done it. We've come that close to ridding our world of polio, and we just have a few more steps to go. Councilman Dingfelder and I are both members of the Ybor City Rotary Club, and I'm sure that he and I can thank our immediate past district governor and Rotary International for all this help. We are going to have a World Polio Day on October 24th, which is right around the corner. So that is what this commendation is for to Rotary International. Come on up in here, my brother. Tampa City Council presents this commendation, Rotary International for Polio Day 2021. Tampa City Council commends Rotary International on its great work towards eradicating polio. Since launching Polio Plus initiatives back in 1985 and global polio eradication initiatives in 1985, polio cases have dropped by 99.9%. Rotary has contributed to more than $1.9 billion, working to raise $50 million annually to eradicate polio. The countless volunteer hours to combat this disease. It is with the pleasure of Tampa City Council to present Rotary International with this commendation on the 21st day of October 2021. We can only say that we want this disease to go away, and we're fighting hard to do it. Please, Mark, a few words.
Thank you. In behalf of the children of the world, I thank you very much. The 92nd history of Rotary in polio is in 1979. Two Rotarians in the Philippines said, we need to get rid of polio in the Philippines. So they did it with the help of Rotary Foundation. And then in 1985, Rotary was able to take the lead on a worldwide basis to get rid of polio. There was 126 countries and disabled 350,000 children a year. So today we have great news. We have it left in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and since January, each of those countries has only had one case. UNICEF announced Monday an agreement with the Taliban to go and do house-to-house vaccinations again, starting November 8th, and then later in November, the rest of the country. So we could be done, WHO expects us to be done in 5 years. There will be no polio in the world. We can stop giving those vaccines to our children. Thank you very much for helping the world be aware of this, and we're in the home stretch. Thank you.
Anyone? Mr. All hands, okay. Mr. Rivera?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman Citro, for bringing this forward, and thank you, sir, for all the work that you do. All of our Rotary clubs do such great work. The Ybor City Rotary, that Councilman Citro and Councilman Dingfelder are members of. I've been there a few times, and it's a wonderful Rotary. Great people like wonderful Jose Valiente, Tom Scarrett, and just a lot of wonderful people who are there, including Councilman Citro and Dingfelder. The New Tampa Rotary does such great work. The Downtown Rotary, Christine Durr, Joe Hunt, so many just wonderful people. And polio, it's amazing to think about how far we've come, where I think at the age of 39 or 40, our 32nd president had his life stopped due to polio. And imagine a man who was president had his life cut in so many ways because of polio. And yet today it's something that is almost wiped out. But with the help of groups like the Rotary, working with UNICEF, and in places like Afghanistan with the Taliban, imagine that, going into such tough places and doing God's work. You all just do a wonderful job. So thank you so much, sir, for all your work.
Thank you.
Maniscalco, you recognize.
Thank you very much, sir, for all your work and your organization and what you do. But we have to remember the name Jonas Salk, who, of course, was instrumental in bringing forth the first successful polio vaccine in the 1950s, who didn't patent it, so there would be global worldwide distribution and make sure that all children or anyone had the access to the vaccine, which helped and saved so many people. I understand polio personally from my cousin, who was afflicted with polio, was not able to get the vaccine in time by the time it was released, and I see how he struggled and how he suffered. A gentleman, a man named Dr. Felipe Napka, who was instrumental in getting my family out of Cuba after the Castro Revolution, and a longtime friend until he passed away a few years ago. We saw how he suffered and how he struggled. So when we talk about, I have this pin in my hand that I'm going to be wearing today, End Polio Now. I've seen firsthand people suffering and struggling. Councilmember Vieira mentioned one of our former presidents, Roosevelt. But I'm happy to see that, that we're aiming towards the goal of total eradication globally, worldwide. So polio will be finally a thing of the past after so many years and after so many people have suffered. So thank you very much, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Carlson, you reckon?
Yeah, I just want to thank you and Rotary, International Rotary Foundation, for all the great work on polio. And I think you all are still doing Polio Plus, so there's all the other things you're doing besides that. And, if not for some war-ravaged areas, this goal would have been accomplished a long time ago. Unfortunately, it's taken longer than any of us wanted. Rotary is it doesn't always promote itself as much as it could, and the Gates Foundation, others get lots of publicity, but Rotary has been silently or quietly working behind the scenes to make this happen, and I think it's such a great program. It also is connected to a lot of other programs, though, and I just want to say for a minute, Rotary completely changed my life, and I mentioned this to the governor a few minutes ago. Rotary has so many great programs for young people, and when I was between 10th and 11th grade, the Rotary clubs in this area pulled me out and said, can you please attend a program called Seminar for Tomorrow's Leaders at USF, and I was able to attend that and be inspired by some of the greatest leaders of Florida and elsewhere, and it gave me kind of a roadmap of where I could go in the future. And then I got involved in Interact in high school and Rotaract in college. And then the Rotary clubs of this region came to me and said, how would you like to go overseas, all expenses paid, for a year? And my family didn't have a lot of money, and I never, ever could have done that without Rotary's help. And I literally spun the globe around and picked the farthest place away, which was Singapore, so that, because I figured Rotary was paying. And I spent a year meeting Rotary clubs throughout Asia and meeting Rotarians, being welcomed in their homes and giving speeches and getting tours of their countries. For what was in Nepal when there was a revolution going on, and the Rotarians were helping me, to giving speeches in Thailand where, people didn't speak a lot of English, but it was a transforming experience, and there are thousands of people around the world that have had that. That program is called the Rotary Ambassadorial Scholarship Program, where they send people to try to build peace and goodwill around the world and build positive ties, and continue to be involved in Rotary and become a Paul Harris Fellow and sponsored other programs. But I just can't thank you all enough for what you've done. And to mention some other names of Rotary that aren't around anymore: Lou Kaminga, Bill Leonard, Claggett Taylor, and many, many others who were my personal mentors and helped me and helped start clubs like New Tampa and others. They've made such an impact on our world. And the reason why I'm back in Tampa, many of us could have lived anywhere in the world, and the reason why I'm here is because of the commitment to the Rotary clubs. They said, we're going to invest in you, we want you to invest in the community. And so I hope we all will be inspired by the goals of Rotary and help push forward Polio Plus and all the other great programs. Thank you.
Wow, Bill, I didn't realize a lot of that in your Rotary connections. It makes me very proud. Well, as you guys know, Rotary's been a huge part of my life. My father was president of the downtown club here in Tampa. And as a little boy, I used to go to the meetings on Tuesdays, and that motto of Mark and Joe, service above self, got into my brain, and here I sit today. And I know I can owe it not only to my dad, but to Rotary. On a personal note, and I know she's watching, my mother, Adele, is a polio survivor. She contracted polio back in the early 50s, which I guess was right around the time the vaccine was coming out, but she was one of the lucky ones, and she survived, and has had an amazing life and is still with us. And anyway, I just wanted to give another shout out to Jack Fernandez, former Councilman Rudy Fernandez's father. Jack's been a member of our club in Ybor, and Jack has always taken the lead on the polio campaigns. And in case he and his family are watching, we give Jack a shout out. But Mark, thanks for all you're doing. And folks, look it up on the internet, and if you're watching, and you can help eradicate polio once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everything that yourself has done as the leader and individual that works so much with Rotary International. However, I try to compare the society of when the Salk vaccine came out and today's COVID. It's sad to say that I think what happened is the Salk vaccine was the one that's being introduced today to solve what we have in COVID. Would it be as successful? Society has changed. When you say 99% eradicated, can you imagine what the world would be if we had 99% eradicated under COVID? However, all of us took the Salk vaccine when we were kids. I know I did. So now we have 700,000 people that have died or more with COVID just because they refused to take the vaccine. Vaccination is part of life. You're vaccinated when you go to school. If not, you can't get in school. And I'm not questioning their rights not to do it. I'm just saying to myself, why? Why do you have to be in this side it's about a political campaign. Right or left doesn't matter to me. Right and wrong does matter to me. So I'm saying thank you for what you've done. It's an unimaginable thing to come up and say 99%, which is true, that what your Rotary Club International has done is almost impossible to do in today's standards. And yet you're accomplishing that without getting involved in any political side. And I want to say God bless you, the Rotary Club, and all your members for doing what you do on a daily basis. 700,000 people is like the size of city in St. Pete just disappearing. Put it into perspective. Thanks again, sir.
Well, thank you, sir, for all you do. It's always to have good leadership to spread the word. Like Mr. Miranda said, it's crazy to me that, again, you have to go to school, you have to have shots before you can go to school. But yet, we're not taking the shot for COVID. I don't understand that, but, I guess it is what it is at this point, but I'm just glad that we are still trying to do our best to get the word out. Again, to eradicate polio, 99%. A vaccine had to be created to stop it. And again, we've got a COVID vaccine, and we're not taking and utilizing what we have to make sure that we make this country safe. But again, sir, thank you for the work you've been doing. Thank you, Mr. Citro, for bringing him for accommodation, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, let's see if we can roll through this agenda. It's almost going on 10 now. After 10, yes, ma'am. Yes, all right. Mr. Maniscalco was move number 2.
Second.
Second one, Mr. Miranda, all in favor? All right. Number 2. All right, Mr. Maniscalco is move number 2. Mr. Miranda second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6, FDOT. Could we have the
Good morning, Chair, and Council. Vic Vide, Director of the Mobility Department. Item 6 is the quarterly presentation requested by Council by FDOT and their projects within the city. Do we have anyone from FDOT online right now?
Yes, we do
Yes.
for Madam Deputy Clerk.
Great, yeah. So the presentation is going to be made by our friend and colleague at FDOT District 7, Ginger Regaldo. Ginger works on safety projects, and today's presentation is about various pedestrian safety projects within the city and some outside. Most of note project-wise is some of them are in really lower income, high pedestrian areas with a large population of persons with disabilities. So these pedestrian safety projects are part of our commitment to Vision Zero, and FDOT are great partners towards that. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Ginger. Ginger, take it away.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for this time. Do y'all have my presentation?
Not yet.
We have the presentation put up if possible. I think FDOT submitted it.
I did.
Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have it in the system? Just bear with us one moment, please.
Unless you
Yes,
want
sir.
to screen.
I mean, I can do that if that's what you'd like me to do.
All right, you're gonna share your screen.
Oh, okay. Let me.
All right, there it is.
Okay. Can you see this slideshow?
No, we see the outlook.
There it is.
There.
Okay. So this is on various upcoming improvements to District 7. Please bear in mind that these are draft images that I will be showing you. So I just want to make sure that there'll be a few changes, but they're, can you still see the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So on Nebraska Avenue from Kennedy Boulevard to East Arctic Avenue, we have planned mid-block crossings, some rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and some pedestrian hybrid beacons that we're going to be putting in. So the RRFBs are planned at 11th Avenue, 25th Avenue, and East Bryan Street, and the pedestrian hybrid beacons are planned for Paris, Juneau, and Seward. We're also planning on some sidewalk connections and replacing the stamped pavement medians between Kennedy and Louisiana, and doing some bulb outs at Nebraska and North Bay Street in Janice, and then intersection improvements at Palm. So some images of those to make it make sense. So this is Palm, and this is what we're talking about, and improving this. Again, these are just the drafts that we have right now of the improvements. Landscaping in the median, putting in some traffic separators, some milling and resurfacing. This would be the pedestrian crossing that we were talking about at 11th Street. Another at Bryant, another pedestrian crossing here with the raised median. And then another one closer to Idlewild, doing a tapered. And then moving on to South Del Mabry Highway from Mango Avenue to West Pearl. What we have planned there is to install some signalized pedestrian crossings near the following streets, which is Mango, Wisconsin, and Pearl. The installed pedestrian crossings and improved lighting as well. This is what it would look like, and hopefully this video will work. Are y'all seeing the video?
Not yet.
Can you see it now?
We see it, but it's not playing though.
Gotta love technology.
There it goes.
So that would be the upcoming type of signals that we were talking about. If I can get my slideshow to go back to what it's supposed to. Okay, that we're talking about putting in. So this would be, again, this is Mango. The draft improvements, it would be like a zigzag across. This would be Wisconsin.
We're not seeing it.
You're not seeing, it's still on the video?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Now is that back on the?
Back on the slide.
Can you see the?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so this would be the improvement at Mango that we're talking about. It'd be a little zigzag. This one would be at Wisconsin, a little bit longer one that would have to go across. And then this one would be at Pearl. And that's my presentation. So if you have any questions, again, those were just draft updates.
Vic, didn't we ask that when they came back, they would talk about Hillsborough Avenue and ML King and some other updates on those issues? Mm-hmm. I thought that's what we asked for. Didn't we ask that for updates or improvements on those areas for the next this quarterly update?
So there are projects going on in various areas within District 7, and FDOT chose to highlight safety projects in partnership with us for this quarterly report. So the next quarter, we can look at some of those corridors as well. As you might remember, some improvements on Hillsborough Avenue were previously presented last year. And so we'll certainly program that going forward. I'm not sure what projects exist right now with FDOT for this year.
All right, because we definitely asked for, Hillsborough looks like a dump. Lighting improvements, the street, it looks horrible. You have some improvements, but it seems like the improvements they're doing is not really aesthetically beautifying Hillsborough Avenue. And that's the complaints I hear all the time. It looks like a dump. Bushwood Boulevard, you talk about ML King. So I think we'd asked for some updates on how we're going to aesthetically and really beautify Hillsborough Avenue. When you look at when people come off 75, Hillsborough Avenue is a major corridor. So is Bush Boulevard. If we can get some updates on those and whatever other safety updates you may have, but I think we really want to know about Hillsborough Avenue and ML King and some of those corridors, major corridors, to see what are the upgrades going to be, because that's what the constituents are asking. We want our places to not to look so blunt and slighted, but where are the upgrades at?
Sure, and we'll follow up with FDOT on that, but I'd just like to highlight that their planning process for the projects to get the work program goes through 3 steps, and funds have to be prioritized similarly to us as well. But I know that they have several projects going on, and we'll stay on top of it.
Any questions, gentlemen? Anyone else?
I have a couple, if I may, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
Hey, Vic, and maybe your associate on the screen can help me out on this. With the flashing beacons that are going to be installed for crosswalks, there are 2 bills out there. House Bill 1113 and Senate Bill 1412. Are those going to affect any of these flashing crossings?
So that's a great question, Councilman, and those bills will not impact these crossings because we are looking at signalization, especially the 3 that we saw on Dale Mabry. And it's really a combination of pedestrian safety and access management. So if you look at it, there are multiple benefits to this sort of a design. There will be no direct impact.
Vic, thank you very much, because these 2 bills are, in my opinion, going to cause greater harm than what they're trying to achieve as far as pedestrian safety. Just to let both of you know, I'm still getting complaints from residents south of Gandy about Dale Mabry from Gandy to the Air Force Base, their inability to make a left-hand turn when they come out of those side streets. Laying that on the table, hopefully we can get some of that corrected. Thank you both very much for your time.
Anyone else? One last thing, Vic, we talked about several complaints still come in, excuse me, about Nebraska and ML King, where there's no turn light going westbound to turn south onto Nebraska, and also at the intersection right at, I believe it should be Talaferro, I believe. I think it's Talaferro, as you get ready to get onto the on-ramp of ML and I-275. If you look at the crash report, there are crashes that just about every day, and also, I don't know what we can do, maybe, I just don't know, at 12th and ML. That is a high crash area, and maybe you have to look at that. But those 3 portions of ML are very bad, because if you look at the traffic pattern every day, when it gets bogged down, I mean, 12th, you're going to have an accident at 12th and ML, or it's going to be at Nebraska and ML or at the interstate. At the interstate. So if FDOT yourself can please look into that, because I keep getting calls about the accidents that are occurring there.
Sure thing. We'll work with our partners at FDOT. We'll look at these 2 locations, Nebraska at MLK, turn requests, and 12th and MLK safety concerns.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen? All right. Thank you for your report. Okay, item number 7.
That's
Humane Society?
done already.
Dingfelder, is yours?
Yeah, Sherry's downstairs.
All right.
Mr. Chair, may I ask council members, is anybody else having a problem with Sire?
I am.
Yeah, Sire is down.
I haven't been able to access it since at all this morning. Were you?
Nope.
No, I can't get
Sire
it.
is down.
All right. I think there's a handout from Miss Sherry on the dais, gentlemen.
Hi there. Can you guys, there we are.
All
Good morning
right.
again. How are you? So I just want to give a brief presentation. I know some of you have come over to our new shelter. We've actually been in that building for a year and 1 month now, and it's better than all of my expectations. We've adopted out in 1 year, or less than a year actually, 12,000 homeless animals. Think about that, 12,000 animals that were unwanted are now in loving homes here in the Tampa Bay area. We have education programs that have affected thousands of children. We have a puppy and kitten nursery that we've saved about 5,000 puppies and kittens, and one of those on the flyer that I gave you, let me see if I can do this. You may notice Dave Batista, former wrestler and actor, he saw our story on social media about a pit bull puppy that had a chain embedded in his neck. And Dave added to the reward and subsequently came and adopted, and because of his notoriety, it went viral worldwide. So we got a lot of worldwide attention of the shelter thanks to his adoption of a pit bull. We've also started an animal rescue division, so if one of the citizens in Tampa sees an animal that is hurt, injured, sick, they can call us and we will dispatch someone to help that animal. And I just want to also say that there's still so many people suffering in our area that have lost their jobs or are not fully employed. So we are giving out over 100,000 pounds of free food every single year. And we still deliver pet food to the homebound with Meals on Wheels. And finally, we have a shot clinic coming up on November the 20th at Perry Harvey Park. And for the first 1,000 dogs, we're going to give them a free rabies and a free distemper shot, totally free for folks. People get there at 5 in the morning in the dark to line up for these shots that we give out. So we're trying to do our part. We stayed open all during COVID. We haven't closed at all. We're up to 122 full-time staff between our shelter and our hospital. And so we employ quite a few people here in Tampa. So I just appreciate the recognition. And if you haven't been over to see our beautiful shelter, we'd love to have you come over and I'll give you a tour of the building.
Thank you. Any questions, gentlemen?
Just a comment,
Recognize.
Sherry, it's been my honor and pleasure to know you and know some of your people and serve on your advisory board for many years in the past. And give a shout out to Cindy Sarf, my aide and your board member, and she's worked so hard over many years. But you, Sherry, you've done just an amazing job of rebuilding that organization, and you're a real gem. And I know you have a big team there supporting you.
Sure do.
And we just want to give a shout out to you and your staff on behalf of all the little critters that you save and help and rescue and everything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Randy, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Sherry, for being here, and I want to give you and the DiBartolo family for doing what you did. I mean, they built a beautiful building, and they did a great job for humanity and the animals. When you look around and you see what's happening in today's society, and I see you in the mornings on Sundays at Big 13 when you bring up your pet of the week, and I look at that, and I would imagine that's a great way of telling the public what you do, and I want to thank you and Big 13 for doing that. It's an amazing thing when you look at the cost of having an animal. I've been trying to help this kitten around the street that I guess he's been thrown out somewhere. But he does have an ear clipped, and Mary told me that means he's been to your shelter before.
That's right. He's already been sterilized, so that's good news.
She took me to my Uncle Sam's place to buy food, and I didn't know it was that expensive. You buy a little bag of about 16 pounds and 48 little cans, and that was about $60. So I know what you're saying now about what you have to do to make your shelter go. And I encourage people to make donations to your shelter because I know what it is to feed something that is not even yours. I'm not taking credit for that. I just like that little cat. He hangs around with some big boys, and the big boys try to take his food away, and I got to watch him eat because if not, he won't eat.
That's so great.
It's an amazing thing that you do with all your board members and all your people who help out. Thank you. God bless you and your organization.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Silk. Yes, I have been to your wonderful place there.
Yes.
But what you didn't tell everybody is that you are also hosting events there.
Yes.
That can help subsidize some of the great work that you all do. And from what I also understand, if you have an event there, you might be able to get a tour of your place also. So thank you for all the great work that you do. And I cannot wait to see you Saturday
night.
Yes, ma'am.
At the convention center, we've got 1,000 people coming, so thank you for attending. And you're right, you can hold birthday parties. We've even had 3 small weddings, which seems a little strange, but in our courtyard, people that love their pets bring their dogs to be part of the wedding. And we make a little bit of money off that, so it's a lot of fun.
And the wonderful thing, if I may, Mr. Chair, is during your adoption process for dogs, you can actually take them out into an area and play with them to see if they're friendly with you or not. And that's a great idea.
Good idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Maniscalco, you recognize, sir.
Real quick, I'm just, I'm very happy that you're right there in the heart of West Tampa, in my district. You employ many people, you help many people, you help so many animals, and let's not forget the Elvis Presley, Tom Parker connection to that property, because before he was Elvis's manager, he worked and lived right there.
That's right.
There's a lot of cool stories, but it's a beautiful facility. You know, I'm proud every time I drive down that street. And keep up the great work, because you have been out there, you are out there, you are making the Humane Society everything that it is. So we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councilman Dingfelder, for bringing this forward. We appreciate all the work that y'all do. I remember when I went on a tour there with my wife, Brian Fry led the tour, and our wonderful tax collector, Nancy Milan, was there, and we had a great time. I've always, you know, appreciated the work that y'all do, but it's funny, when you have someone in your life that you love, a spouse or a child or whatnot, who takes up a cause, it quite often becomes your cause. And my wife, Colleen, as you know, is a big animal lover. So it's just one of those funny things that you kind of adopt just because you love the person, and then you begin to see, I've always liked animals, but it's never been at the top of my thing, so to speak. But, you know, when you fall in love with somebody who kind of is into that, it kind of becomes your thing. So I'm you know, by virtue of my marriage and affection, a big fan of y'all's. I've become a really big fan of y'all's. So I appreciate all that y'all do, because pets mean so much to people, and they really are a part of the family. And I've seen that again and again. So thank you for everything that y'all do.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, well, Ms. Sherry, we thank you so much for giving us your presentation this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Sire is back up. If you just refresh your browser, it should come back up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, sir. All right, we're at that time now, gentlemen, public comment.
Mentez not uhuru. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, and we say we as African people should always be thinking about our freedom. That's something we should always be thinking about. One thing you have to realize is that tens of thousands of children are sexually molested every single day, and not one word is heard about that. They get molested and physically abused in silence. 90% of women have probably been raped in their life, sexually abused, physically abused, and nothing is said about it. They live with that pain silently. It's not reported to the authorities or anything of that nature. It's so many people that seem so happy when they're being human trafficked. Human trafficking is going on all over this world, not just here in this city, not just in major cities, or in certain municipalities or in small towns. It's going on all over this world. And it's nothing said about it. It's nothing done about it. And the world keeps just smiling like nothing's going on. And you know why? Because people are intimidated, they're afraid, they're scared to speak out. When crimes are committed against individuals, they don't say anything about it. Because that's the way the world is. The world is designed that way. And that's what's happening right here in this city. When we African people are 26% of this population, and we don't get 26% of the justice, we get 100% of the injustice. We get 100% of the prison sentencing and the over-sentencing, and the crime and the drugs and the alcoholism and the diseases and everything else that goes with it. But we don't get 26% of the good things of this city. We don't get 26% of the city budget, and our representative can't even speak out against it, can't even speak out for it. And you have the other white people that sit there and say nothing about it. Why is that? Because the world is designed that way. The world is designed that way for us to suffer peacefully and silently. You have Africans, you know, white people love the police. White people love the army. They love the Air Force. They love calling people in foreign countries terrorists. People who are fighting for their rights, and they love calling people right here in the United States, African people who are trying to survive. They love calling us gang members and drug dealers and dope dealers and thugs. Different words they have for the N word. And they want us to suffer peacefully. And they expect that. That's a level of expectation. You have 3 mayors, 3 female mayors in this city, and you have 2 women coming right here before the city council begging for a bathroom for the fire department. People who risk their lives for real, begging for a bathroom for the women, a women's bathroom or a women's changing room. There's something wrong with that system. So we need this city council to stand up for our 26% of whatsoever we represent in this city.
Thank you, sir.
Morning, Council. Steve Michelini. I'm here speaking on item number 8, which is the consideration for the first reading of the sidewalk ordinance. First of all, let's be clear about the issue itself is an honorable one, and one which we are trying to get to a fair and equitable solution. The case law does not support the elimination entirely of a plan for when it's impractical for you to build a sidewalk. There has to be a provision for those funds to be directed toward an improvement that is directly related to having collected the fee. And the city doesn't have a plan for that. There is no provision in the ordinance that says that within a certain amount of time, and that was between, the current ordinance says 3 years, then you have to refund that money. So they're collecting a fee with no plan on how to spend it that directly relates to that. There is no plan without a multi-million-dollar improvement project to fill in the ditches in West Tampa. This is I don't know where that idea came from, that somehow this is going to happen, but it's not going to happen. Subdivisions have to build sidewalks, so that means if you have 3 houses or more, you have to build the sidewalks regardless. So what you're focusing on is 1 or 2 infill housing projects. The math simply doesn't add up when they're talking about millions of dollars being left on the table. The city's numbers don't even support that there's $1 million in lost revenue. You're also including residential remodeling in this fee. So if somebody starts to remodel their existing home, you're now saying that you're going to collect a fee or build a sidewalk regarding a single-family house. The subdivisions, as I said, have to build sidewalks. The math simply is wrong. It doesn't add up. The exemptions on the site are far more difficult to deal with. The city's not going to deal with that. If you can't build a sidewalk because there's a ditch or a tree or a utility pole, which the cost of the utility pole alone is $5,000 starting cost to relocate that. If you have to put in reinforced concrete pipe or relocate or modify a ditch, it requires extensive improvements. Those prices start at about $25,000 and go up. The information that has been shared with the legal department regarding the legality of collecting a fee without having a plan on how to spend it, and the provision that requires it to be refunded if it's not used within a certain amount of time. We're asking that this provision be sent back to the legal department, give us an opportunity to sit down as a stakeholder, one of the major stakeholders in this particular case.
Thank you, sir.
And work out the details. So thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Motzinger. I represent the Tampa Bay Builders Association, 1,200 members of the home building industry in Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties. My primary job is to be the perspective of the home building industry. So I don't represent any particular project or an individual company. And the reason I'm here before you today is to talk about sidewalks. And of course, we support sidewalks. We always have, we always will. And we absolutely agree with the overarching goals of this ordinance. However, there are some unintended consequences that I don't think have been highlighted. So Steve did a great job of putting a lot of information out there, and I agree with everything that he said, but I don't think your goal as city council members is to mandate that somebody that's got equity in their home is wanting to do a renovation to take them through the next phase of their lives, to make them pay $5,000 to move a power line or however much money to move a transformer or something like that, or fill in a ditch just to put in a sidewalk that probably will cost them more money than the renovation itself, and then they probably won't do anything, and then you'll be hearing from them. So I don't think that is your goal. I think that everybody has the same goal of making sure that sidewalks are being built where they're supposed to be, like schools, yes. But guess what? You guys actually could take action today and mandate that some of that in lieu fee that we've already paid into, make sure that those sidewalks get built near the schools. So you can do that right now. Meanwhile, let us, the major stakeholders, get back with the staff and work out some of these tweaks so that you don't have all of these unintended consequences. And speaking of schools, nobody can even tell us if the sidewalk's supposed to be built as the crow flies, or from the front door, or from the back door. So it's just things like that that just need a little bit of tweaking to make this a really, really good policy. So I am requesting that you continue this and let us go to work with staff and tweak this thing, because I want to come back in front of you guys and say, you have got to approve this. I want to be there in lockstep with the mayor and the rest of you. But to borrow a phrase from a member of city council, this just needs a little common sense. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
How many more for public comment?
Final speaker, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Share this on projector real quick.
We got it.
Okay. I'm here to talk about two things, actually. First, let me add this part to it so you comprehend. I am the living entity. I am the living true government, the only living true government. I am the living law, land, air, water, the only living law. All power, jurisdiction, and authority comes out of me, as I am the only true living sovereign ever. Now, it's right here. Back to the projector again. Attention, sovereign, worldwide, global, American kingdom. The first ever true, real living union, a reconnecting with the spirit, self, each other, recognition for togetherness, not a business, first ever period. Retiring the misuse for marriage, keeping it sacred. As many know, I'm about to get married for the real first time. As you know, the United States marriage was a commercial one, which makes it fraudulent. And I have adopted my children and all of the peoples, for all of the people were left stranded, and I have taken on all the land because all the land was left stranded. That is how I'm the law for all your land throughout the entire globe. Now we have what you call foreign, commercial, global leaders that are here. I comprehend that they are here seeking access codes and seeking permission to continue to operate. But like I have told them already, they will sit for 3 days and explain to me why do they want this power and this authority back And they have to promise me that they're never going to oppress their people ever again. They're never going to entrap their people ever again. They're never going to human traffic their people ever again. They're never going to try to genocide their people ever again. That's what Blue Campaign, Blue Star, and this Visa report is all about. And then Congress needs to stop rioting all around and get here to this meeting before every last one of them end up tossed out for trying to genocide all of America. Now, Jane Castro, trying to assassinate, trying to wipe out and defraud the public, I have warned you over and over. Jane, you need to give a public apology, resign, or go ahead and turn yourself in. And that is a direct order. Jane, you still work for me, not the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the last speaker on the second floor? Making sure.
No more speakers.
Thank you, sir. Madam Deputy Clerk, how many do we have on the line?
We have 7 registered speakers, and they are all online.
All right, let's go.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
The first speaker is going to be Allison Date. Allison, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Allison, are you there?
All right, we'll come back to her.
Okay, the next speaker.
There I am. I didn't know, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Allison. Okay, great. I'm Allison Day, and I'm, as someone who's been trying to get sidewalks in my mom's neighborhood for the past 4 years, I'm very happy to see that you are addressing that issue, looking at the codes and maybe putting some more money into it, because that's what I was told each time I requested a sidewalk, was that there's no money available. Try again next year. Well, now my mom fell and she's now using a walker, but she still insists on walking even though there's no sidewalks in the neighborhood. So I'm hoping that you will deal with changing the exceptions that the developers seem to be getting away with, and putting that money to good use to make our city a safer place for everybody. So thank you very much, and for all the work that you do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, the next speaker is going to be Michael Randolph. Michael, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, City Council, and directly and indirectly the residents of West Tampa. Want to give a shout out to that young man that came up and is doing so good. Keep shining, young man. Keep representing. And know that the streets love you and what you're doing. Keep representing us. Today I'm here to talk about a community initiative that we're about to launch. It's called the Community Engagement Initiative. It comes out of 2 things. First, a study was done on West Tampa to show how many people in the community really felt that they was part of the neighborhood. Only 45% of the people felt that they was part of the neighborhood. The other part of that study talked about how many people will want to stay in West Tampa for the next 5 years. Only 46% of the population stated that they would. The other part of the concern is participation. There has been a lack of participation in community residents in really critical meetings that will determine the future for West Tampa. So what are we going to do? How do we deal with this particular issue? Because we want to see the disability, we want to see the youth at the table, we want to see those that are low income at the table, because the decisions that's being done now could affect their life. So what is our response? The first thing we're doing is to create what's known as transformational outlets. This is where community residents can tie in to whatever's that's going on in the community to be part of the process. In order to win this deal, the community has to have buy-in. That's one of the strategies. You can go to your library, you can go to a church, you can go to a laundromat, any kind of entity that you can go in and give input. The second part is the informational and input outlet in which community residents will be tying into all of those type of meetings that represent them, the city council meeting, county commissioner meeting, and those other meetings that they begin to participate so that folks know what's going on in West Tampa. And then finally, the last part of that initiative is to educate the community. Most people that you talk to the community as a civilian don't know what community development is, don't know what economic development is, don't know what a theory of change is. So a lot of times when projects come to the community, they base it on what someone is saying. We want to educate them with the tools necessary to make a decision as to what's best for the community. Then we have the think, and that's going to be part of the think tank that we're doing in West Tampa. Now, part of this is teaching residents best practices on how to do public safety, how to do affordable housing. All these things are so critical to residents in the community. But let me emphasize this to people in West Tampa. Either you're at the table or you're on the table. Right now, things are moving quick and fast in West Tampa. The writing is not on the wall. The wall is falling down. You have an opportunity to change the narrative. The power to change is within your hand. One of the things you can do is to connect to the CRA meetings that's going on in West Tampa. These communities will determine the future of West Tampa. So on that note, the only thing I can say, folks in West Tampa, you were part of the process or you are the process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is going to be Emily Hinesdale. Emily, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Emily Hinsdale. I am a Tampa resident and a Walk by Tampa board member, and I am speaking today about sidewalks. Again, on item number 8 on today's agenda, you will have the opportunity to vote on language that improves and clarifies the existing sidewalk installation code. If you vote in favor of these code changes, new single-family homes will be required to either install a sidewalk or pay into a sidewalk fund, finally. You already know why Tampa needs more sidewalks. There are the facts. Tampa's roads are some of the deadliest in the country. And there is the logic. Throwing bikes, walkers, kids, seniors, the disabled, all in the same space as cars going 25 to 50 miles per hour is a recipe for disaster. Tampa needs to join the rest of the developed world and create a safe path for the non-motorized, the sidewalk. This is an issue of fairness. The major stakeholders in this issue are all the citizens of Tampa. New home construction has a major impact on our neighborhoods, blocking roads, destroying trees, clogging and overburdening stormwater drains, and increasing the amount of traffic. It is unfair that neighborhoods bear the burden of new builds, but builders do not contribute to responsible neighborhood growth. Mobility fees cannot be used on local roads, where most of this type of construction is occurring. The minimal cost of sidewalk construction, less than the cost of a new oven range, would go a long way toward bringing us to some level of fairness. Piecing together sidewalks bit by bit can take time and can appear frustratingly slow. But as the saying goes, you can't see the forest when you're among the trees. If you do your job now as good stewards of our city, our future will be a safer city, a real Vision Zero achievement. I know this council, the mayor, and Tampa's residents will continue to look for additional ways to improve our sidewalk network. But this code change is a tremendously valuable tool in the fight to improve Tampa's safety. Please vote yes on the proposed language presented today, and then get to work on increasing the sidewalk in lieu fund fee to meet current market prices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is going to be Janet Scherberger. Janet, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, council members. I'm Janet Scherberger, the president of Walk by Tampa, and I'm speaking in reference to item 8 on your agenda, the sidewalk code. Thank you for your attention to this important issue over the past year. We all want safe streets for everyone in Tampa. Improving the sidewalk network is an essential tool for reaching that goal. It's also good for the environment, it's good for business, and for public health. When the sidewalk code you're discussing today was enacted, it was intended to fill in gaps parcel by parcel by requiring sidewalks with new construction or payment to a sidewalk fund in cases where sidewalk can't be built. But exemptions in the code mean that too often no sidewalks are installed and no payment is made into the fund. The proposal before you today closes that loophole and will mean miles of new sidewalks in Tampa each year. More than 30 neighborhood associations and organizations from New Tampa to south of Gandy have officially supported this change. We heard the concerns expressed at the August 5th meeting about ditches and the amount of the in lieu fee payment. So Walk Bike Tampa looked at 20 of the 31 properties that received waivers and instead paid into the fund in 2020. There were 2,000 permits issued in 2020 and only 6 involved a ditch. Not very many. And the average fee paid across all 20 properties is about $1,300. Not exorbitant. People are not paying to move pipes and move utility poles. I just want to give an emphatic thank you to the City Council for getting us to today. This issue with the sidewalk code was first raised by Emily Hinsdale 3 years ago, and over the past year, many of you have worked very closely with Walk Bike Tampa to get us here. We appreciate that immensely. I also want to thank the mobility staff who every day champions safe streets for everyone, and thanks to Mayor Castor for making Vision Zero a priority. Together, we can reach the city's goal of eliminating traffic fatalities or severe injuries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is going to be Carol Ann Bennett. Carol, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Carol Ann Bennett. I am a lifelong resident of Tampa. Closing the sidewalk loophole only affects newly built homes or a major renovation to an existing home that costs more than 51% of the assessed value of the property. I personally investigated 40 newly built homes in my zip code. Only 1 builder installed a sidewalk and only 3 paid into the fund. That means that 36 times they did neither. That means that 90% of the time we got no new sidewalk and no money into the fund. The builders did not lower the price on those 36 houses. They just took more profit. Builders say they passed the extra cost of sidewalks on to the home buyer. I challenge that statement because if that is true, it means they priced their houses $1,000 or $2,000 below market rate and only raise it to equal the market rate when they build a sidewalk? I don't think so. Builders charge the maximum amount the market will bear, period. Every house, every time. They are in business to make money. They do not charge less when they skimp on sidewalks. They just make more money. There are exceptions that allows people to pay into the in lieu of fund when there are obstacles to building a sidewalk. They don't have to pay $25,000 to move an electrical pole. And I want to point out that when people discuss the in lieu of fee, it keeps getting exaggerated because they don't subtract the driveway when estimating the fee. The driveway distance is subtracted. I repeat, the driveway is subtracted. It's right there in the code. A 50-foot lot only pays for 32 feet because the driveway on a new house is a minimum of 18 feet. I know because I checked with staff. 32 feet times $29 is $928. Construction costs have nearly doubled in the last 5 years. $29 is ridiculous. You've got to raise the fee, and the sooner the better. My next topic is safety impact fees. This really is a no-brainer. We citizens do not have an obligation to subsidize the cost of someone moving to Tampa. We citizens do not have an obligation to subsidize the developer's profits. New residents must pay for the increased burden on our infrastructure that they cause, period, no debate. If new people create a need for another firehouse, the new people must pay for it because we didn't need it before they got here. If we need more police officers because we have more people, the people who created that need must pay for that need. All of the impact that more people put on our infrastructure must be paid for by the people who create the impact. It is only fair. That burden must not be put on current residents. Why should people who don't even live here have more rights than we citizens of Tampa? Lastly, get rid of private amendments. They're being used by people with deep pockets to customize the code to benefit themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is going to be Jean Strawmeyer. Jean, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, everybody. Jean Strohmeyer here. I have been in Tampa for 50 years and South Tampa for 30. Just a few different items that I'd like to speak on. The sidewalk item, I totally support that, and I think everybody before me said it best, so I'm not gonna keep going there. There's item number 11 and 12. I just have a, regarding the police pedestrian bike. I just don't want this to be somebody crosses the street and they get a jaywalking ticket. I can see the headlines. Jaywalking tickets on the rise in Tampa, or Tampa too stupid to safely cross a road. I just remember at the courthouse one time, they were just giving tickets to people right in front of the courthouse for people that just crossed at the wrong section. I just don't know if this is gonna be some kind of crazy overreach. And the statistics on this particular incident, this particular matter, they keep saying, with Florida's population is 21.48 million, and out of that, 3,185 people lost their lives on the road. So it's all deaths, of course, are terrible, but just let's put that into perspective. Item number 15 with the mental health issue and the law enforcement. I just want to make sure that we don't have I can picture a small social worker standing next to a cop, and then, they have to protect that person as well as the person with a mental health issue, their partner, and I just would not want to see somebody be put in danger. So I don't know if we have cops that are also social workers. That would be a hard cross training there. 16 as a golf course. I didn't know we had one. I didn't get to read all the rest of that information because City Council, the website was down when I was trying to do my research, and I just don't have that much time to keep going back and forth. 23 Sunday South, I don't know what that was about, but it has something to do down here. So y'all know what your best judgment is in that area. 25 is the Lower Peninsula update. I'm following that. That's where my ELAP is. The woods that they're working on, putting a pond and a culvert and all that, I'm following that. I'll be meeting with them, so we'll talk about that. And let's see, I think I don't know what the green spine cycle was. I wanted to look that up, but I didn't have time because the thing was down. I don't know about number 60, the multifamily they want to do near Chubby's Pizza on 5021 Bayshore. I don't think it's quasi. If it is, then I apologize. The FAR, we want to eliminate that, and we want to eliminate the pizza. We use that term for something else, but have a great day.
The next speaker is going to be Stephanie Pointer. Stephanie, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, gentlemen. I have several topics to touch on today. I'm proud to say that as the FAN president, we, FAN people, unanimously support the amendments proposed by Walk Bike Tampa and Sidewalk Stompers. Build a house, build a sidewalk. It's just that simple. The remodel that Mr. Michelini brought up is a change of more than 51% of the home. We're not talking about a kitchen or bathroom remodel. Both developer representatives have had 3 years to get with legal and get this all hammered out. Yet, here we are again. We're on the lookout to kick it down the road. We don't need any more continuances. We talked about that on Monday. This is the first endorsement from FAN. Be on the lookout for more. FAN people have united. More community opinions are coming soon. We are establishing methods for cooperation. We are expanding. We have scholarships for new neighborhood associations who join the fight. Any neighborhood association who would like to join should please email us at info@fantampa.org. Now, for my personal belief statements. 1, privately initiated text amendments. We call them PETAs. Oh my, I saw you guys continue one just last week. What a waste of the city council's time. Please let the professional staff do the revision of our code. 2, public safety impact fees. Why should developers be able to add to the workload of our fire and police without offsetting the cost? Support public safety impact fees. And last but not least, I believe that Councilman Dingfelder is being persecuted for his support of the neighborhoods. Please support him in any recusal that's asked of him, and recuse yourselves as well. I believe that if you don't, you may be the next person to be sued. Have a good day, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more racist?
Chair, that's going to conclude the public comments. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. It's going on 11. I know number 8 may take a moment for some discussions. So I want to just jump right into, if you don't mind, the consent docket. Mr. Citro, he's out of the room. Mr. Miranda, items 9 through 15. I think items 11 and 12, Mr. Dingfelder went pulled.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll move 9, 10, 13, 14, and 15, with 11 and 12 being held for discussion.
All right, seconded by Mr. Maniscalco. Roll call vote, please.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco, Vieira, and Gould.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, Ms. Maniscalco, we go item 16.
Mr. Chairman, in
Yes.
regard to 11, 12, and I apologize, I was out of the room for that. I just wanted to speak to that, and then I'll move those items. I wanted to give a shout out to TPD specifically, and working with the state and the college there in regard to pedestrian safety. As you know, it's been spoken to ironically this morning. You know, we have a big pedestrian safety problem, and TPD is going to be working, I think, especially up in Mr. Vieira's district in the Bush Fowler area, to get the word out, not only to the drivers and the pedestrians, that they've got to look out for each other, and so they're going to be doing a lot of public information in regard to this grant, and I just wanted to give them a shout out, and I'll move items 11 and 12.
Second.
Mr. Miranda has moved as a second the items. Roll call vote, please.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro,
Yes.
and Gould.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. 16 through 20, please, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move items 16 through 20.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro, and Gould.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Dingfelder, Public Works, items 21 through 30, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be glad to move those items 21 through 30.
Second.
Second by Mr. Miranda. Roll call vote, please.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Vieira, Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
and Gould.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, in regard to 27, 28, I think it's important for the community to know when we're when we're spending $1.5 million on a project like this. This is it's called advanced metering infrastructure, and it's basically where the water department over the next couple of years are going to be converting over, and we're not going to have meter readers anymore. You know, picking up and looking at your water meter. All of that is going to be technologically the meter amount that is going to be technologically sent into the city through computers and telemetry. So it's a lot of money, and I talked to them about it, and but they said that the total project is probably going to be about $40 million over the next 5 years. But I think it's money well spent, and we have to, you know, technologically get up to speed and be that kind of city. So I just wanted to point that out.
Mr. Randy, you
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That also brings to mind that meters do not run fast; they run slow. That's why they take them out every 10 years or so. And what the amount of money Mr. Dingfelder quoted is correct, because the meters will have to be changed to meet technologically field where they just go to a pole, the pole sends it into the machine, and you get your bill that way. That's how it's done in a lot of cities.
And the other neat thing that they mentioned to me, Charlie, was that these days, if somebody has a leak, they might not know about it for a few months, and it creates big problems and big expenses for everybody involved. But with this type of telemetry reading and the technology, they'll be able to see that leak, right away within a few hours. If the meter's just running and running and running, and then they'll call the people and they'll go out there and say, hey, you got an issue on your property. So this will be a two-way street, and ultimately I think it'll be a real good thing. Thank you.
Mr. Randall, can you move Finance Committee move
Thank you. I
items
move
31
through 36, with 35 being held by Mr. Carlson.
Mr. Citro has seconded. Roll call.
Viera. Maniscalco.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
And Goods.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Carlson, you want to take care of that item right now, sir?
Sure. Obviously, as it stands right now, I would vote against this item. And the reason, as I've stated many times before, is that I have questions and the community has questions, the business community has questions about the efficacy of the EDC. When we as a body asked them to change their name because of the problems that the name Tampa Bay created a couple years ago, they refused and they made fun of us in the community. When our city council intern found a $7.5 million error in their reports to the city, we then asked them as a body to restate their reports, and they had several pages of errors that they stated. I've spent the last few months talking to staff about creating changes to the contract or changes to the relationship, and none of the recommendations I requested were put in. In this case, I would ask some professional deference. If an issue came up that was regarding cemeteries or burials, I would lean on Chair Goods because of his industry expertise. If there was an issue before us on insurance litigation, I would lean on Councilmember Vieira, and others of you have specific expertise. I have more than 30 years of economic development expertise, including advising the Singapore government, which is the best in the world at it. I've advised communities in California and Silicon Valley. I've advised communities in Florida and in Latin America. And I can tell you, professional expertise in looking and talking to the top economists in the state, there are many problems here. Obviously, if I make a motion to have everyone vote against this, the EDC has been heavily lobbying, and the vote would fail. What I would like to do is to propose some changes to the contract. These I wrote this morning, and so staff has not had a chance to look at them. And what I would propose in a few minutes is to make a motion to defer this for a month and ask council to ask staff to consider these changes and come back to us with any proposed edits. The charter does not allow us to edit contracts. We can only approve or deny them, but I would like to have the staff consider changes to the contract and not respond in the day because they haven't seen them, but to come back in a month. And I'll say one more thing. I presented Tampa Scorecard, which anybody can go to, tampascorecard.com. What it clearly shows is that Tampa by itself, not in the region, economically failed in the last 10 years. And all the top economists in the states admit that. We can't measure success by the number of apartments or buildings that go up. It's what people call the edifice complex. We have to measure it by the measures that other cities use. Tampa Bay as a region has done well, but Tampa as itself has not. And if we do not change, if we're outsourcing economic development and we do not change our outlook toward economic development, our process of economic development, then we're going to be judged in the same way that the last administration was judged, which is that they did not succeed economically. I have a list of changes here, which I'm happy to quickly read. I know I'm almost out of 5 minutes, and so I would, if you'd like me to quickly read, I can. I'll give one to the clerk and a couple to my colleagues. Mr. Chair, could I have a couple minutes to read through those, or you want me to stop?
I'll yield my time to you, Mr. Carlson, if you want to speak longer.
Thank you, sir. I put these in several categories. One is reporting, and I'll just gloss through these quickly. I think these are, I'm not a lawyer, but I do write and edit contracts, and I just think these are safeguards for the community that the staff should consider putting in. Under reporting, I think that I call them the TBEDC, they should not only submit the monthly reports to city staff, they should also submit them to city council. For us to get copies of the reports, we have to ask staff for them, and even DOT reports back to us, so why not? And DOT has nothing to do with us. but we do approve this budget. Second, I think every 6 months, a representative of the Tampa EDC should present in front of us. And they can present their best shot at what they say they've done. But I think that it should be limited to what they've done on behalf of the city and what the city has paid for. In reporting the industry of the clients they work with, I think they should list the industry most often associated with that client as typically described on the client's website or by the SEC. You all will remember that an example, one of the clients they mentioned was Mosaic, and they called them a customer service company, and most people don't use that as the description of that company. And there are many, many others that appear to, there are theories on why they're not correct, but anyway, it would be more honest and direct for the public to see the actual industry the company is in. If after the reports are submitted, the EDC discovers errors in the reports, they should voluntarily submit the changes within 30 days in a corrected report, an explanation of what was changed and why, instead of us having to ask. And I would suggest, since an intern found a $7.5 million error, if an error occurs that's more than $5 million, the EDC should refund to the city $50,000 so that we show that the public we're getting our money's worth. Monitoring results. For each client that the EDC lists in its reports to the city, EDC will obtain a signed affidavit from the client confirming the role the EDC has had in the relocation or expansion of that client. This would include where the lead came from, how much time EDC staff spent on the project, the roles EDC played in the project, and whether a third party, such as a commercial realtor, claims overall credit for the project. Any incentives should also be disclosed. An example of this, a month ago at the CRA meeting, Chairman Goods mentioned he had gone on a tour with the EDC and looked at Pfizer. The developer of the project looked kind of puzzled and said, if I'll paraphrase, something like, the EDC didn't bring that company, we did. They just helped with the paperwork at the end. I know a lot of commercial realtors who are upset because they say the EDC claims credit for the projects they bring to them. They're appreciative of the services the EDC does, but they don't like the claims where they exaggerate what they've done. Each EDC client should report and have an annual sworn affidavit for 5 consecutive years after the project is announced to confirm whether or not the promised results, usually staff increase or capital expenses, have been made. No clients that refuse to sign an affidavit should be included in reporting the city. We know from basic research, if you go on LinkedIn and a company claims to have created 200 jobs, and on LinkedIn it shows they've created 180, that's pretty close. But if they say they've created 200 jobs and on LinkedIn they have 10, that's not even anywhere close. And so we need to have affidavits. The city council previously approved affidavits that the city incentivizes something that clients have to pay. So if a client refuses to sign it, then we won't count it because it's not valid. Ethics. The EDC agrees not to hire as an employee or consultant a city employee or give them free or reduced membership for 5 years after the employee leaves the city. Also, the EDC receives funding from the city and other government agencies and thereby agrees not to engage in politics or political activity of those agencies. There is a political provision in the document, but I think it should be strengthened. Transparency. The EDC agrees to maintain an updated list of its board, officers, committee chairs, major sponsors, and other leadership clearly marked on the website. This should include the names of individuals, their corporations, and other affiliations so the public can easily see the information. After we requested 2 years ago that they add their board list to the board, they rebuilt their website, they refreshed their website, and they still didn't include it. When Carol Post came on board, she insisted they do it, and still it wasn't very easy for people to find. The information is not clearly easy to find today. Accessibility, inclusiveness. The EDC agrees to hold at least 4 events per year that are free to the public and well advertised so that the average citizen and small business will have access to information and contacts otherwise only available to EDC members. EDC agrees to allow any company or individual located in Hillsborough County or Tampa to pay their own way to join any trade mission organized by Global Tampa Bay. Even if Pinellas County agrees for you to go on a trade mission, the EDC has to approve it, and the EDC typically only approves members to go, and it's not even an EDC organization. And so what we're saying, there should be free events open to the public, and small businesses should have access. Opportunity zones are being misused in many ways, and this is the thrust of the direction of this. The IRS has 2 definitions for opportunity zones, and really it should be focused on job creation in distressed areas and not used to displace low or moderate income people.
Carlson. Wrap it up.
Can I take 30 more seconds? 30 more seconds. There was an issue over the brand Tampa Bay. Mike Merrill, who was Mike, is that his name? Yeah. Anyway, the former director of the Pinellas EDC had proposed a consortium in Tampa Bay to jointly own the brand Tampa Bay. The allegation now is that Tampa Bay EDC, because of its brand, takes all the leads and doesn't share with the region, which is causing lots of problems. What I would propose is a requirement that our EDC has to play fair and play with other partners in the region and share the brand Tampa Bay. And the last thing is a positive. Most cities measure their success by per capita income, and on that factor, Tampa actually does okay. St. Pete surpassed us last year, but we do okay. But there's been a lot of talk about whether we're doing better than Austin, Charlotte, and Atlanta. And what I would propose is that if the per capita income of Tampa, just the city of Tampa, not Tampa Bay, there's a lot of misinformation about their Tampa Bay versus Tampa, but if the per capita income of Tampa exceeds Austin, Charlotte, and Atlanta in that year, we'll give a bonus to the Tampa Bay EDC because they should be focused on average income of people in Tampa, not just on giving subsidies to companies. Thank you so much to my colleagues.
Mr. Renner, you want to chime in right quick, sir?
No, I'm just going to speak for myself. I don't know where to begin, but let me just say this. I have never met, since we're going to start about what we've done and what we haven't done, I got invited by the good people who want to build the sidewalks everywhere, and I'm not against that. I refuse to meet with them. I never met with developers at any time. The same, I never met with the good people who want to come in with the ordinance and present it. I wanted to stay neutral. I did meet with developers yesterday with the chief of staff and 2 individuals from the department who handles this. We had a nice conversation for about 30 or 40 minutes, and I had to leave, and they had to leave because we have other things to do. However, when I sit here and I heard with the beginning of what this council member said, I welcome an investigation of Charlie Miranda on his cell phone, on his computer, on anything they want to look at, on me. They can have it now. They can have my checking account. They can have my banking account. They can ask if I went to with Mr. The attorney, city council attorney, to Tallahassee to see if I'd done something wrong, or any other council member has been to Tallahassee done something wrong. I've been in my mind thinking of what to do with a big sign that's inside the Children's Museum that said, Tampa Bay Water, the distributor of all waters in the region, which is true and it's not true. You see, the city of Tampa has 700,000 customers in the same area that Tampa Bay Water does. Not all of it, but the same. We account for 1/3 of the water production in the whole area. So I'm going to ask also, I'm going to send them a letter, and I'm going to ask the good people at the Children's Museum from 1998 to now, how that board, who brought that in, how they got it in, who's paid who did they pay? I'm going to ask a bunch of questions about that. And then there's other things that have been a gall in my mind, and I've never met with the good people at Tampa Bay Economic Council. I haven't done that. Maybe someone has, but I haven't. So I asked for an investigation on anything that they want. If we want to clean dirty laundry here, I don't think there's much laundry here to be cleaned, but I'm asking for whoever's in charge, whether it's the feds, the Chinese government, South Korea, North Korea, Japan, any government that has anything to do with us to investigate Charlie Miranda today. Today. See if I made 1 penny outside of my paycheck that I get from the city. And what I do, my income tax, they can audit if they want. So I want to see how many council members do that. I don't have a cell phone in the chambers because I follow what I tell my grandchildren. Let me tell you what I tell my grandchildren. If you don't drink, you cannot get a DUI ticket. And if you can't get a DUI ticket, you're never going to become an alcoholic. Have a nice day. So I can never be charged with anything in here on a cell phone or a computer because I don't bring one. That doesn't necessarily mean anything wrong, but at least it saves me from going from any embarrassment. And I'm not saying to have or not to have. I don't care what anybody does. But I take somewhat of offense in the start of the conversation what the council member said, which was regarding like there's something wrong. If there is, let me know. Let me know. I don't like to play with Indian. You know, we can fix a problem no matter where you're at. I cannot fix a perception of a problem. And that's exactly what we have here. Perception of a problem. And I'm not going to take it sitting down. I'm not going to let my father's name be ruined. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Can I respond to the person?
I'll let you respond. Anyone else on the issue, and I'll come back to Mr. Carlson. You respond. Mr. Dingfelder, you recognize.
I guess I'm confused on what the issue is. Mr. Carlson, I think was speaking to item 35, and he's proposing, and I'll take it as a motion, Bill, to continue it for 30 days, the item for 30 days, so he can work with staff and perhaps come up with some compromises about the contract that we have with the EDC. I think Bill has good expertise in that area that frankly I don't. I mean, the legal side, I could look at the contract, but in terms of the substance, you know, I think we should rely on each other's expertise, and we all have expertise in different fields. So if that's what you were talking about, Mr. Chairman, in regard to the subject at hand, if Bill made a motion, I'll second it and give him 30 days to continue that particular item.
I'm going to let Mr. Carlson respond. I don't see any other hands to this subject, but I want staff to chime in on this now before we entertain the motion. I do have some questions as it relates to some of the things Mr. Carlson is talking about, but I think for the most part, my understanding is the contract was evaluated because of Mr. Carlson's knowledge and expertise, and some of the things that they've added and deleted I think are very good in the contract now. Especially it's going to be good for marginalized communities because, like I said, I've gone out with this organization now twice and to scope out some areas that of their expertise to make sure that we're going to get a bang for our buck. And I think they made a presentation a couple of weeks ago for the CRA about some of the things that they're going to do now, which I think is going to be extraordinary. It's going to be a wow for East Tampa. So I respect what Mr. Carlson said, but I want to hear from staff. But I want Mr. Carlson to be able to rebut to Mr. Miranda. Then I'll let Carol Post chime in on this contract. Mr. Carlson, you recognize.
Can I respond after staff too? I just want to, in particular, respond to Ms. Miranda's comments about water. I've made it public to this council, the public, and any organization that talks to me. My firm, which is a PR firm, worked with Tampa Bay Water. In fact, I named Tampa Bay Water. And we made, I forgot, about $50,000 a year over about a 15-year period working with them, which was not profitable, but it was some amount of money. When I became a city council member, my firm had, I may not remember this exactly right, but we had about a 5-year contract with about $80,000 a year left on that contract. And if I remember correctly, we had 3 years left on that contract. I had a choice at that point. I could either recuse myself from the water projects or I could resign Tampa Bay Water. And I resigned a client that was one of our longest clients that I had about 3 years left on the contract. And so if I remember correctly, 3 years times 80,000 was about $240,000 that my firm gave up. And by the way, that money was for public engagement, public involvement in communicating with the public. Why did I give up that money? Why did my shareholders give up that money? So that I could fight a $2.5 billion boondoggle, which is toilet to tap, now called Pure. And we'll discuss that another day. But by the way, you may know that an opposition research company has been doing research on me all over town, including at Tampa Bay Water. An out-of-state opposition research company has been doing research on me and my firm. The media, including the Times, has pulled public records on me because somebody's trying to throw me under the bus in this. And the question to the public is, who's so interested in getting the $2.5 billion that they'll come after me personally like this? And in many ethical cases, people will vote on something where they have a conflict. In this point, my firm gave up $240,000 so that I could fight this project because I think it's a boondoggle and bad for taxpayers. It has nothing to do with the EDC today, but there's nothing in there that every document, every invoice has been looked through over and over again. We did the right thing. We did more than the right thing by resigning and giving up business so that I could fight this project. Well, in regard to the EDC, a very simple thing is a year and a half, 2 years ago, we asked them to restate their numbers because they made pages and pages of errors and how they reported to us. We can't even rely on the basic reports that they give us. And so all I'm trying to do with this is say, the staff can't possibly respond to 2 pages in one day. All these are standard, I'm not a lawyer, but they're standard kind of things that you would put into a contract to protect taxpayers and to protect the public. If we're going to outsource our economic development, we need to make sure it's done correctly. So I would ask us to delay this for a month so that staff can look at this and discuss with the EDC and come back to us with a proposal. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson, thank you for.
And I'll second it for the delay for 1 month.
I'll third it.
Before I take any motion, I want to hear from staff before I take any motions. But I want to say that, Ms. Carlson, thank you for your explanation. That wasn't needed, sir. But we appreciate that's your personal issue at your firm, and I don't think that was necessary to tell, but that was great of you to do that, sir. Carol Post, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Goods. I appreciate the conversation that you've been having about the EDC contract. I just want to offer 2 items for consideration before you proceed with a vote on a delay for 30 days. We've been working on this contract probably for 6-7 months now, and taking into account a number of the aspects that Councilman Carlson has reflected on this morning to make material changes to the contract. And without going into detail on them, we have significantly changed some of the functions that we will be seeking from the service provider, from EDC, particularly around, as you mentioned, redirecting their efforts toward revitalization of some of our underserved areas, really aligning their services around our opportunity zones, and a number of other respects. We've also taken a great deal of time to refine the reporting requirements, to have them be more outcome-based, and to really better focus them on delivery and performance. And all of that is done at no change to the cost. We've kept the cost of the services flat. So more services, better services at no additional cost. Now, I would just offer this respectfully. We had at least 2 meetings scheduled with Councilman Carlson, respecting that this is very important to him, to be able to brief him individually on this contract, to get any feedback that we could get back from him and make refinements. He was unable to make either of those appointments. I was able to speak with his office aide and share what our expectations were, but I did not hear back from the councilman. This is the first this morning now hearing delivery of this document. I had also offered through his office aide, to present during staff reports, to actually voluntarily pull the item off of consent so that we could have a more robust discussion during staff reports. I have a presentation that is prepared and ready to go. I also have the CEO of EDC, Mr. Craig Richard, and the new chair, James Nozar, on standby to be able to present during staff reports. Again, the office, Mr. Carlson's office did not respond as to whether they would like to have this presented during staff reports, so therefore it's not scheduled. But I would suggest, as an alternative to a 30-day delay, that if you could take the item up under staff reports, we could have a robust discussion. I would actually be happy to consider a number of the points that Mr. Carlson has presented this morning, to incorporate those in and present the contract for approval and consideration for council today.
Ms. Post, can you get the EDC for this afternoon if we did that? Are you able to get the EDC director or their attorneys or whoever on board this afternoon if we delayed it to this afternoon?
Yes, sir, I can do that.
All right. I'm going to get Ms. Carlson. I see Mr. Vera has his hand up, and then we'll come back to you, sir, and then we're going to bring it in for a landing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. You know, when I hear a lot of the things going on in council, I always, let's just say this. I remember I had a town hall a couple of weeks ago, and we had some really angry people there on some national political issues, and I told people that the temperature is very hot in politics these days, which is, the temperature is 115 degrees. I'm an 89-degree guy. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of heat, but it's hot. I had a quick question, if I may. This contract to Ms. Post, how long is it for?
It's proposed for 2 years, which
Okay.
would
has been the previous cycles. They've run in 2-year terms.
Thank you. And that's something that's very relevant. I would support pushing this to staff reports because we do have a council member who has a lot of passion on this issue and whatnot. My only challenge is and let me ask you, Ms. Post, if I may, is there any sort of and we can probably get to this, but what I'd be interested in seeing is if time is of the essence on this contract, et cetera. My challenge with this is that we're seeing a 2-page document with, by the way, a lot of suggestions. Some of them would appear sensible without being somebody who's personally entangled in this. But that we're seeing this on the day of council, that we're going to vote on something on the consent agenda. That's certainly something that does give me some pause. But again, we want to give some deference on this issue. So I think at the very least, pushing this to staff reports would be a smart thing to do. Just my thoughts. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Carlson, and what about Mr. Dingfelder?
Bill, could I jump in 1 second? Yeah. Mr. Chairman, just in terms of the timing of this, if we take it to staff reports, with all due respect to Ms. Post, Mr. Carlson's got two full pages here of suggestions, and we can't negotiate this on the fly. That's why I think the 30 days is reasonable. It looks like the contract's retroactive to October 1st no matter what, so I don't think timing is that critical. But I think we're going to spend and waste a lot of time when in reality, if there's one minor change or 2 minor changes, we're not going to be able to do that anyway, because it's going to have to go back out, and the other side's going to have to approve it with their board or what have you, their executives, and we can't do that on the fly. So I just think, with all due respect, Carol, I just think it's somewhat of a waste of time for council to be doing that. I think that the better approach is to work with Mr. Carlson and I know you're not going to agree with him on all these, but whatever ones you can agree with him on, we can resolve it, bring it back in 30 days, and let's do it a little more methodically, and frankly, Lewis, without the heat, because I think coming back this afternoon, there's just going to be a lot more heat.
Mr. Carlson, then we'll bring this in for Orlando with the final comments.
Thank you so much, everyone. In Tampa, in politics, the easy way to discredit a legitimate policy argument is to say, oh, somebody doesn't like somebody, or somebody's not looking at it fairly. In this case, I didn't present opinion, I presented potential edits to a contract. And if we have a staff discussion this afternoon, it's going to be about them presenting all the great things they think they've done, and me presenting why I think I disagree with them and why their information doesn't hold up. That's not the point on the table today. The point is, how do we protect the voting public, the tax-paying public, for the money we're putting in? The public, in part, wants us to focus on economic development. We're entrusting an outsourced organization to do that. And all I'm saying is, let's hold them accountable by having some additional kind of standard clauses in there. And I'll tell you this, as it stands right now, I would vote against it, obviously, but if it includes all of this, I'll vote for it. And let's see where they are, because at least we'll be holding them accountable. We'll know that the information they're giving us is correct. And I will say this to the points made by Ms. Post. I've spent the last year or so, 2 years, having conversations with Ms. Post, with John Bennett, with Rob Rosner about this subject over and over and over again. I thought that there were some aspects of it that would be changed based on those conversations. And a phone call I had with Ms. Post a couple weeks ago, I found out that there were no changes. In fact, they were increasing the scope on different things. And my concern is about accountability to the public. And those clauses, like the ones I included, are not in there. If a media outlet wants to search the public record, they'll see that, yes, I skipped 2 meetings and I sent my legislative aide because I didn't want to hear how I'm wrong and the staff is right. They would not budge on anything that I proposed at all. And why should I sit in a meeting where they're not listening to any of the concerns I have? I mean, is it not a legitimate concern to say that we need a signed affidavit to say that people met the goals or didn't make the goals? I mean, there's all kinds of things in here that could or should be done. And so I sent an email that pretty much details this whole list more than a week ago, and the response was, we thought that you would compromise with us. Well, compromise is about meeting halfway or meeting partway, not that I have to listen to a lecture on how I should understand what they do. I'm here to represent the public. I happen to have a deep expertise in economic development. I've worked with some of the best economic development groups in the world, and I want to hold this one accountable. And if we hold them accountable, we'll get the results even working with them, and everybody will look good. Thank you.
Mr. Miranda?
Chairman, thank you very much. This has nothing to do with item 35, why I brought what I brought up. It has to do with the anger of the voice in the beginning of the conversation. The gentleman just spoke very kindly with a different attitude of his voice, and I appreciate that. But when you attack a system, and I'm not talking about the whole system, when you make individuals without addressing the individuals directly, those are what I'm bothered from. I don't come from one side of the railroad tracks, I come from the other side of the railroad tracks. And I'm not a good politician, I'm a pretty damn good individual of facts that presents the public. I try to do what I can with what I have, not mentally, not education-wise, because I have the same degrees most of you have, and I have a feeling for the community, and I fight for things. If one person is against 1,000, and I believe that one person is correct, I'm gonna fight for that one person versus 1,000. Doesn't matter to me how many votes I get or lose in an election time. Votes are cast way before you and I seek office. And what I'm saying is that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with number 35 or anything right with 35. It was a mannerism of the presentation that got my side of the railroad tracks dander up. And that's why I did what I did. And I'm not being apologetic. I just want to make sure that everything is said is brought to the table. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. McCoy, I respect that you want to make a motion, but I'm going to hold this over to staff reports. And at that time, the motion is to be made. We'll motion it with these items. The only concern I had, you cleared it up that you presented this to them already.
Right. His motion was on the floor. He made a motion. I seconded for 30 days. We have to dispense of that, Mr. Chairman.
And just to be clear, I didn't give them this list of edits to the contract, but I sent them an email that is almost the same list listed in terms of concern. So what I did today is I translated that into potential edits to the contract.
All right, well,
Mr. Chairman, if I can, if I could follow up Councilmember Miranda's statement with regard to the motion and the second. The only thing that needs to be set is the date. When you say 30 days, the clerk has the calendar, you have the calendar in front of you. You're limited to one regular meeting in November, which would be what, November 4th, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
And the other choice would be to come back on
December 2nd.
So whatever.
Okay, December 2nd.
Mrs. Dingfelder, restate the motion, so I'm clear on what we're asking staff to do. Restate the motion. I think it's Mr. Carlson, restate the motion.
I would like to continue item number 35 until December 2nd and request that staff look at this list of proposed amendments to the contract and then report back to us on the 2nd with their recommended changes to the contract based on this list.
Does that mean staff, or does that mean meeting with the EDC in reference to the contract?
It's not, the point here is the contract, which is an issue between the EDC and the city. It's not about, I'm not asking to discuss whether the EDC has hit its goals or not. The point here is these are recommended changes that we would ask the city staff to look at and negotiate with the EDC so that we can put safeguards in for the public.
Because when you talk about the region, I know we had this conversation about they didn't want to do the region versus just Tampa. So that might be something they cannot do. Their board might not want to do. So I want to make sure that won't be a determining factor.
No, I mean, we as city council do not have the right to edit contracts. All we can do is defer it for a month and ask them to consider it. If they come back and say they like 9 out of 10 or they like 2 out of 10, then we have to decide at that point, do we want to vote on it or not?
All right.
So all we're asking is for them to consider this so that, in my opinion, we're trying to put safeguards in so that the public sees that they get what they're paying for.
All right. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Carlson. Mr. Veer.
And really fast, if I may. The chairman had just suggested that we move this to staff reports. I think that a wiser alternative would be to push this, have number one, staff reports, because Councilman Dingfelder's statement on the heat and escalation is very on point, to limit this staff report to 15 minutes. Hard limit, and then vote on this. That's why I'm going to vote how I am. I may vote for this after this, but I still
confused
think.
now. I just
Yeah.
want clarification, because I just was going to do what you suggested, send it to this afternoon, but Mr. Miranda, who's having deference, said that there was already a motion, which I remember.
Oh, yeah,
a motion
sure.
on the floor by Mr. Carlson, second. So that means if that motion passes now, there's no need to have a presentation this afternoon at all, because right now we're going to make the determining factor.
I would like to hear the presentation, and then I may vote for this. I don't know, because I need to hear
But
the presentation.
it's a mute. But Mr. Vieira, it's a mute point to have the presentation this afternoon, because right now, if we make this motion
Yeah, it
to vote, it kills it and it goes for 30 days.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
All right. So now Mr. Carlson has moved it. Mr. Miranda is seconded. Take a roll call vote, please.
And Mr. Chairman, before you do that, forgive me for interrupting, but to be more precise, it's not 30 days, it's till
December 2nd.
December 2nd, just so we're clear. Thank you.
Second.
Vieira,
A respectful no, maybe changed at the end, but no.
Citro,
No.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Goulds.
No.
Motion carried with Vieira, Citro, and Goulds voting no.
All right. December 2nd, Ms. Post. All right. Let's move on. Mr. Carlson, Building Zoning Preservation, item 37. 40 was pulled through 56? No, through
50.
50.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move items number, yes.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead, you could make the
I'd like to
motion.
move items number 37 through 50, excluding item number 40.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dingfelder. Roll call vote.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Citro,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
and Goulds.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, Mr. Shelby, item 40.
Item 40 is related to the comprehensive plan. I see Ms. Malone online. Thank you, Ms. Malone. I appreciate you standing by for this. This is for council to adopt the comprehensive plan procedures manual for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and Plant City, superseding prior editions of the manual. Council did not specifically have a report from the Planning Commission staff, but this, I believe, did go or will go to the Planning Commission. It already has gone to the Planning Commission. Ms. Malone is indicating it has, which means now it's up to the local cities to adopt it. The reason that council, it became the subject of a discussion was because of the fact that, and we've heard the talk about privately initiated amendments. And there was a point in time when the Tampa comp plan privately initiated amendments were sort of traveling along with the land development code, and at a point in time, they separated. And this fell off frankly, it fell off the same track that LDC is continuing with the privately initiated. This manual amendment does not take into account those issues that council wanted to, at one point in time, at least have a discussion on. Ms. Malone can talk to it, but there is no need necessarily. She can go into what the changes here specifically are. They are in your backup material, notated and highlighted. But in terms of the continuity of discussion with council's policy decision relating to the privately initiated text amendments relating to your Tampa comprehensive plan, we can schedule something and give direction to the Planning Commission somewhere down the road. But because this was on the agenda now, I wanted to bring it to council's attention so that you know what you're voting on today, and to be aware that if you want to address that issue, at one point it did, and I know that Danny Collins had been doing research by the Planning Commission staff on the issue of what other jurisdictions were doing. You know, they have a report if council wants to go forward. But I wanted that to be at least on your radar so that you can make an informed decision. Thank you. Ms. Malone, did you want to add anything, please?
Oh, no, thank you, Marty. I would just add that this update that is before you today was largely initiated because of the changes in House Bill 487 that increased the threshold of small-scale amendments from 10 acres to 50 acres. So that needed to be updated in the manual, and then we took care of some noticing, some of the advertising procedures as well at the same time. So that's why this is before you. I would also just mention that this was before you. The manual went through a comprehensive update last year in February of 2020, and it was approved by this council as well. It was approved by the Planning Commission on September 14th, and it's also going to be heard by the Temple Terrace and Plant City. Each jurisdiction needs to approve this. Thank you.
Any questions, gentlemen? Any questions? All right. Entertain a motion to move the item.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mr. Dingfelder has moved it. Mr. Miranda second. Roll call.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
And
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you're recognized.
And if it's council's pleasure, I'll re-raise the issue if the council wants to give any direction, or no direction, under new business, if they want to address the issue down the road. Thank you.
All right, sir. We'll take it under advisement. Mr. Vieira, Transportation, 51 through 56, sir.
Yes, sir. I hereby move items 51 through 56.
Second.
All right, Mr. Maniscalco, second it. Roll call, vote.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, item number 57.
Set to,
You're recognized, Mr. Shelby.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but items number 57 and 58 and number 60 are as a result of your meeting this past Monday, to give directions to move these to an afternoon meeting at 1:30 p.m. And with regard to number 59, that has been previously removed from the agenda, so you can actually just move these as one motion, 57, 58, and 60, setting the public hearings. You don't have to, you don't have to announce them, they will be noticed.
There are different dates between 57, 58, and 60. 57, 58 have the same date to January 13th of 2022 at 1:30, and 60 has a date reviewed for February 3rd, 2022 at 1:30.
Thank you. And that's in keeping with council's direction to only schedule 2 review hearings for each of those afternoon
All right,
dates.
so we're moving all three items, 57, 58, and 60. Mr. Dingfelder moved. I think Mr. Maniscalco seconded. Is that correct?
Miranda moved it.
Miranda moved it?
Second, Maniscalco.
Okay, Miranda moved it. Maniscalco seconded. All right, roll call.
Maniscalco.
Yes.
Vieira. Citro.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Dingfelder.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
And Goode.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously with Vieira being absent at vote.
Chairman, move open public hearing 61 through 71.
Can we do number 8? I think you
Oh,
have
yeah.
people waiting around, and that's
Okay.
what we told them.
I really want to move 8 till this afternoon, but that's probably going to be long.
It is going to be long,
That's going to be long.
And Mr. Chairman and council, just a reminder that you do also have 2 review hearings set
At
for this
1:30.
morning, and you have one in particular set for this afternoon at 1:30 p.m.
No, just that.
How many people we have waiting down there? Anybody waiting for 8? I don't think anybody's waiting for 8.
No, I just thought people were listening, people were watching, and we told them, we said, okay, we're gonna do the consent agenda and then go back to 8. I thought that's what I heard.
I'm fine.
All right. I don't want us to go back and forth. Let's go ahead. We got 8. Let's go ahead and do 8 and get rid of 8. Any questions on 8?
Number 8?
Any questions for item number 8, gentlemen? All right, here comes Vic. All right, here we go.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Council. Regarding item number 8, a requested modification to the existing sidewalk code for Chapter 22, Streets and Sidewalks, specifically Section 22-103. As submitted, the requested code reflects the request made by council The original request or the original information was submitted externally by Walk by Tampa, that was then reviewed by council. And our role as advisors to council, we've reviewed this. We've held several meetings with many stakeholders, including the Builders Association, Walk by Tampa. We've listened to a lot of their suggestions and recommendations and partnered with the legal department. And on that basis, we are presenting this code change for first hearing. I'd like to highlight a couple of things regarding this code change. One, that we believe, as proposed, this will directly allow us to prioritize sidewalks throughout the city in a better way. It will simplify the current code by eliminating loopholes or exceptions to building or paying into the Sidewalk Trust Fund for new developments, particularly single-family homes, for one or two homes, or also commercial properties. Finally, I'd also like to provide a couple of clarifications on items that were discussed previously regarding major renovation. This language exists in the current code as well, and it does speak to major renovations as defined in Chapter 27, which is over 50% of the house value. The other thing is that we do not, as part of this code, require removal or installation of poles or ditches where a sidewalk is not practical. We're simply asking that if persons are building a new home or doing a major renovation, that they either contribute to the Sidewalk Trust Fund, or if they find it cheaper to do so, go ahead and build the sidewalk. And with that, we'll open up for any questions unless legal has anything to add.
Mr. Dingfield has his hand first, and then we'll go to Mr. Maniscalco.
Thank you, Vic. No, I think you did answer my question, because a couple of the folks are making a big deal about the renovations and trying to mislead the public into thinking that, oh, if I'm going to throw some paint on the house or do some other minor renovations, I got to build a whole new sidewalk. And that's not the case. I just read Chapter 27 definition of major renovations, and as you said, it has to be 50% of the assessed value of the home for that additional renovation. And we know that is a significant renovation. That's a major renovation. If you got a house that's valued at, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, that's a $200,000, renovation. It's not a small project. And basically the sidewalk we're talking about for a typical 50-foot lot, whether or not it's $40 a linear foot, you're talking about, without the driveway, you're talking about $1,200. If it's $75 a linear foot and it has no driveway, perhaps, you're talking about $2,800, or $3,500. But anyway, the bottom line is it's not prohibitive. These days, a lot of the new homes that are being constructed in South Tampa are $1 million. I did the math, just like Charlie always does the math. I did the math, and a $2,000 sidewalk is 0.2% of $1 million home construction. 0.2%, not even 1%. Okay, it's a fifth of 1%. Okay, if you have some homes in other parts of town that are new homes, maybe it's a $400,000 home. But even so, it's still less than 1% of that $400,000 home. And if it's truly an affordable home, we have an exception for that, right, Vic?
Yes, sir, that is correct. We do have an exception for affordable homes where affordability is defined by Florida statute.
Right. And so we've been very careful on this. It's long overdue. 10 years ago, certain people in this town came to city council, and I think they slid it through very, very quickly without council really knowing what they were doing, and they created a big loophole. The sidewalk stompers and Janet and Emily and those folks went out and they did the research that the city should have done. And they concluded that we've probably lost somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million a year during that 10-year period of homes that were constructed without sidewalks and without contributing into the in lieu fee. So all of this is long overdue. It's the right thing to do. The mayor's on board with it. Staff is on board with it, and I hope council's on board with it. Thank you.
Mr. Maniscalco, recognized.
Thank you very much. And Councilman Dingfelder brought up what I was going to ask, which was, what is a home renovation or major renovation, which is that 50% plus of the assessed home value. And again, Councilman Dingfelder went over those details, considering home prices, new construction prices, especially in certain parts of the city that are $1 million or close to it and whatnot. When I'm out in the community, and I'm sure other council members hear the same thing, one of the first things I get are, fill the potholes, when are you going to pave the street, and when are you going to build the sidewalks? And I see in many parts of this community the lack thereof sidewalks. You mentioned ditches and whatnot. We talked about, West Tampa ditches, and there's ditches throughout the city, but we're way behind. We're one of the deadliest, if not the deadliest in the country. We embrace Vision Zero, but we don't put our money where our mouth is. We are in this case because we're actually contributing to pedestrian safety of people that are in wheelchairs, people that are on bicycles, whatever it is. There's a criticism of, well, you're building a sidewalk here and a sidewalk there and it's not complete. We have neglected this forever. So if we wouldn't have neglected this from the beginning and just built the sidewalks, we would have had a complete grid system. Now we're playing catch up. This is the right thing to do. It's already been said, the mayor's on board with it, staff's on board with it. I hope that council is on board with it. We have to keep people safe. We have a lot of people that walk or want to walk, and there are a lot of places that do not have the sidewalks, whether it's kids walking to school, whether it's the elderly walking through the neighborhood, whether it's somebody in a wheelchair, motorized or not. I see these people all the time. We have a very, very dangerous situation. It's not a lot of money. I talk to realtors or people that are in the home building business, and they all say, I've never made this much money. I heard it yesterday. I've had the best last few years. The housing market is ridiculous. Oh, the house is $500,000. People are fighting and they're offering $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 cash over that just to get that house. And that's happened in many instances. So what's a few $1,000s to do the right thing, to help us build the sidewalks, necessary infrastructure investment? I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Mr. Vieira, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I agree with what's been said. I'm glad to support this. I think this is a reasonable measure that we can do things that government should be doing or causing to be done whenever it comes to sidewalks. We know that our City of Tampa budget for sidewalks is, I believe, about $850,000, I believe it is, which is remarkably low. We were going to get 4 or 5 times higher under all for transportation. That's something that's off the table. This is something that doesn't help us get to where we should be, 110%, but it is a useful and reasonable tool to be used to help us to ultimately get there. And mind you, if there's unintended consequences from this, then we can take a look at it and then address those issues. But for me, from what I've seen, it is a very reasonable tool that is used to do something that is a neighborhood need. I always remember conversations with a gentleman who's a friend to a lot of us, Mario Cavado, who always talks about, when in the world am I going to get sidewalks in West Tampa? In West Tampa, when is it going to happen? And a lot of parts of the city are asking that. And I know a lot of council members, really virtually everybody's always, doing work on sidewalks, et cetera. No, Councilman Maniscalco, Councilman Citro talked a lot about that issue very early. For this one in particular, I wanted to thank Councilman Dingfelder because this is an ordinance. And when you work on an ordinance and put it together and go to staff going, hey, folks, I got this idea. Let's make it into an ordinance. That's not easy. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work from your office. That takes a lot of work from you and working with staff, et cetera. So I'm a really big proponent of giving credit where credit's due as it relates to city council and whatnot. And I wanted to thank Councilman Dingfelder for this because, again, coming up with ordinances on issues like this where you're dealing with a lot of sides and trying to broker a compromise, and ultimately you try to mediate things and you go, hey, listen, we're maybe not going to meet where we want to be on this. That takes a lot of work, so I wanted to salute that. But again, I'll be glad to support this. I think this is something that's needed, and I wanted to thank everybody for their work, thank the mayor for her support of this. I think that's important as well, too. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I see your hand, sir.
Yes, I made my speech, Mr. Chairman. You know, this reminds me of another ordinance that when I ran for office last time, someone spoke that I voted against. And they were right on the first part of it. And that reminds me of the plan that it was on transportation when we started giving the cameras, the tickets out. I don't know if you all remember that. Those funds were, I voted against it because the funds were not going to repair and help the intersection in which the tickets were given at. In other words, money was given and it was going on to the general fund. And guess what happened in the second go-round? The council members agreed with me, and we got 25%, and I don't even know what's happening to that money now. Anything that we get on tickets from the company that we have a contract with, the administration, whoever the mayor is at that time, should put 20, and I don't know if you know about this, Vic, or not. I don't even know if you ever told about it. And is the money going into the transportation fund for that district, for that intersection to be brought up to standards? I don't know. And that's another question for another day. But I'm mirroring that ordinance with this ordinance. Do we have a plan? What is the plan? Where are you going to start at? How are you going to get out of the situation? What do you get out of it? The administration has already admitted that in the sidewalk fund, they've used that money for sidewalk repair. That was not part of the deal. So they owe that money back to the sidewalk fund. I'm going with you guys now. The administration also passed, and this administration in future, there's also a tree fund. Do we really know how many trees are being planted and where the money goes? No. So later on, I'll make those things. So what I'd like to see is to see what's the plan. No one's explained to us, A, where the sidewalks are at to be built, B, whether they need repair, C, connectivity. And my aide, I hope she's going to show some of the things here that in 15 minutes, a block and away from my house, I took these pictures yesterday the way to City Hall. And here's what I'm talking about. There's a sidewalk on MacDill and Woodlawn. What's wrong with it? Looks nice, right? There's only one problem. I don't know if they paid that individual to put the sidewalk on his property. Usually the poles is what tells you where the property line is. The next one. I like that one. You're going down. This is a block from my house. I can show you tens of thousands of these. What's going to happen there? Does it address that? I don't know. You see where the grass is at down to the curb? It's about 8 to 10 inches deep. Somebody's going to fall and break her leg. Next one, please. How about that one? That's nice. You can walk up to the sidewalk and hit a pole. Next one, please. That's all on Woodlawn. This is where I'm showing you the 8 to 9 inches down if you're trying to walk and you're an elderly person or a young person. You may trip and break an arm or a leg. How about that one? That's nice. So that's what unintended consequences is what I'm looking at because I see what's happening. That's a beautiful one. I guess Tico doesn't like for us to put sidewalks. Next one, please.
Great.
Next one. Let me have another one, please. I'm running out of saliva. This one here is adjacent to that property where there is no sidewalk. Is it going to take, whoa, let me go back. Is it going to take 3 years, 5 years, 50 years, or 100 years, or 500 years to connect that sidewalk all the way down? This is about 3 blocks away from the stadium, the football stadium. Next, please. Now there's a sidewalk, and I think the next 3 or 4 sidewalks, it's the same sidewalk that a tree that's in the property of the property owner is causing that damage on the sidewalk of city property. How do you resolve that problem? Who was there first, the tree or the sidewalk? I would say the tree. There's 4 inches all meets the criteria. So we haven't addressed anything of these things. What I'd like to see is this council put everything in order, not just blanket thing and have more problems later on when this thing is passed. All I'm asking is the loopholes, and I want an audit of the people who said that there's $1 million and $1.5 million that we lost. I want to find out who they are so I can personally file a lawsuit against them if they violated the code, or at the time of permitting, were they given a pass because they met the code. I don't like to throw darts unless there's a dartboard that I'm trying to hit. I don't throw darts into an alley that's dark. So I want to see everything brought into one. I want to see this done right, and it's not being done right. We don't have a plan. You can't tell me where the sidewalks are going. You can't say that there's a ditch there, and I don't care who you are, you have a ditch, you still pay to somebody else to have a sidewalk. That, to me, is not the way the democratic system works. So you talk about people in affordable housing, you talk about people over 50% of the house. The problem is that the valuation of the house is not what they want to sell the house for. That's not the value of the house, what they're going to get for it. It's what they're being taxed for, but $60,000, $70,000, the majority of them are. And it's not about West Tampa, it's about West Tampa. It's about north of Hillsborough Avenue. It's in Drew Park. And when you talk about South Tampa, you look at Port Tampa, there's ditches there that a semi can go in, you never find the semi. Same thing in Drew Park. There's a ditch on Hyder that if there's a bomb scare, there's where I'm going to hide, because it's got cement all the way around it. So it's about 10 foot wide by 10 foot deep. And we still haven't addressed none of the problems, but we're going to pass an ordinance and say we're going to fix it later. You better fix it before it does. And I'm dead serious about what I said. I want to see an information report on the $1 million and $1.5 million. Were they in violation of the law, or will the law give them a pass because that's the way it was when they built it? And Vic, you and I saw some of those figures yesterday, and I'm still at awe at what happened. Was it, in your view, and I'm not going to ask you that because I don't want to put you in a hot spot, but we have got to understand who did the development. Were they given within the law, or with the law, did they violate the law? That's all I'm asking. We can hold this for 30 days. It ain't going to change the difference. But we got to stop putting sidewalk money into repairs. There's another repair job at 1729 that I took pictures of yesterday. There's a tree in the middle of the individual's property. And guess where the property line is at? Right even with the telephone, there's the tree. Is it on the city side or his side? It's on 50-50. So what are you going to do with that tree? Cut only half of it? If he wants to build a sidewalk? He called me, he wants to build a sidewalk in the driveway. And you know what? They said that from when I spoke to him this morning at about 8:30 in the morning, he said there was an inspector, a tree inspector, said that the tree is in livable condition. It does not need to be taken down. Now, how are you going to put a sidewalk there? You going to take the tree down? I can give you the address, 1729 Powelton, West Powelton. I was there yesterday, checking the tree out that the gentleman called me on a complaint. So what are we going to do with that one individual that I mentioned earlier? How is he going to resolve that problem?
All right, I gave Mr. Miranda a little more extra time, gave him deference. I'm going to let Vic respond to some of it because those are valid concerns. Where is the implementation process with this ordinance? I think that's the key factor, the implementation process. Vic, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councilman, I heard three things that you would like clarity on. One is, what is our plan? The other is, why are we introducing or making these changes when we have sidewalk challenges on our streets already? And then the third is about repairs, which I might look to legal to help us out with. But let's start with what the plan is. So, as we discussed yesterday as well, we have mapped out our needs, and our overall needs for sidewalk, to have sidewalk on either side of every street in Tampa, is 1,300 miles. Now that 1,300 miles at current funding levels will take a very long time, absolutely. But that's not the only way or the only source that we're depending on to move our bike walk plans forward. This change to the code, and it's an existing code, it isn't a new code, we're just removing loopholes, that's it, is one part of that strategy. The other part of that strategy, as Councilman Vieira mentioned, was looking at other funding sources like surtax, in addition to our current sources as well. So by no means is this one mechanism to solve all of our sidewalk problems. Now going to sidewalk challenges, the pictures that you showed us, I completely agree that we have all kinds of challenges. One of our biggest challenges is oak trees that oftentimes pop up sidewalks and damage these sidewalks. But that isn't a reason not to build sidewalks in the first place. They can be repaired, they can be rebuilt, and we can look at and are looking at what are better species that will provide a combination of shade but limit tree root damage, and also what other measures exist. So I completely concur that we have sidewalk challenges. That's why one of the reasons we're having this conversation in the first place. And then finally, as far as the repairs go, and current sidewalk in lieu fees are being used to build new sidewalk and repair new sidewalk, oftentimes that repair literally means removing a panel and putting in new sidewalk. And so we have conferred with legal, we have put this together in a thoughtful manner. And the goal of this proposed ordinance or the amended ordinance is simplicity. It is purely simplicity so that we can track better. And finally, you'd mentioned some numbers that were proposed by external groups that may have even initiated this conversation, but at no point do we own that analysis or that data. Again, we do not feel proposing these changes to the ordinance preclude any other conditions that exist out there or any kind of historical deployment of sidewalks or not. We just feel that this is a good policy, it is equitable, and one of the biggest beneficiaries of this ordinance rather are going to be people in neighborhoods where there's a lot of diversity, lower income, and not as much development as elsewhere in Tampa. So this is about equity and getting that prosperity across the board. This is also about our ability as practitioners and engineers to prioritize our needs via the Sidewalk Trust Fund or the in lieu fee when sidewalk building is either not feasible or a contractor opts out of it. So again, all we're doing is simplifying the ordinance to effect better outcomes, which we will report annually. That's enshrined in the proposed ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and then I'll finish right up. So then, by your statements there, Vic, although you spoke in general terms, the house at 2300 Fern, the one that's got the tree already there and the sidewalk lifted up that the picture was shown, I guess that's going to be fixed by the city.
It will be prioritized and fixed depending on the
prioritized. I'll be dead 50 years from now, and that tree still be there and the sidewalk will still be broken. And then the one at 1729, the one where the tree's in the middle, how are we going to solve that one? And like that one, you spoke in general terms. And then again, and I'm not here, the $1 to $1.5 million that were said it was, in essence, stolen, and then the other side said it wasn't. We're just going to leave it lie. I like to investigate both sides. The one that said $1 million and $1.5 million, the one that brought up the subject matter. I'd like to have clarity. I don't like to speak in general. I'm not a speaker in generalities. I speak very clearly so I can understand myself. There was one side that said $1 million to $1.5 million that were disappeared. I won't say stolen. And the other side saying, here's why. I like to have an investigation of those little facts, and it won't take long to do that before I vote. I'm not opposed to voting for the ordinance. I'm opposed to vote for the ordinance the way it is because all these generalities are not cleared up, and if I'm confused on it, so is the public. Did we have 1 to 1.5 million disappear? This side's saying yes, because the ordinance said that. We're making crooks out of people that are not crooks by saying innuendos on either side, and I don't like that. I like to make sure that when I open my mouth, I have facts to present and back what I said. I don't have those facts, Vic. I'm sorry to say that. Thank you very much.
Can I
Thank you,
respond to
Chair.
that $1 million thing real quick? Okay. Mr. Miranda, since I mentioned the word $1 million, and I don't know the exact amount, whether or not it's $1 million or $500,000 a year, it's still a lot of money. And I have talked to the ladies who came up with that number. And the point was, it's not stolen. It's money, it's the loophole. It's not, the people who built those homes without the sidewalks took advantage of the loophole, which was their legal right to do that. Okay, there were 10 years when the loophole was big enough to drive a truck through, and that's what was allowed, and that's what was done. So therefore, what they did was they said, if the loophole hadn't been there for the last 10 years, then this is the amount of money that could have been collected. So I don't believe anybody's asserting that it was, yeah, maybe people use the term loosely stolen or this and that. I want to clarify on behalf of anybody who said that that's not the case. It's just money that the city could have collected if we had closed up the loophole 10 years ago. It's water under the bridge. It's all gone. Okay, but effective today or 2 weeks from now when we do a second reading on this, then that loophole will be closed and we will start either collecting the money or people will build the sidewalks. And I think it's really important to clarify that. If you want to go deeper into that money issue and that sort of thing, that's totally your prerogative, and I'll support your motion, but it has nothing to do with the ordinance itself. The ordinance stands on its own merits. The gentlemen have already spoken to it, and I'm not going to repeat it. It's a good ordinance, it's a solid ordinance, and it closes the loophole that's been there for 10 years. And I think we should do it today, and we shouldn't delay it. Because when we delay it, then everybody will come in and take their own pot shots, and pretty soon the whole thing falls.
I think Mr. Citro was first, Mr. Carlson. I see you, him, Mr. Citro. I think it was early.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hate to sound like a Beatles song, "I Me Mine," but I have spent time working with sidewalk stompers. I have gone out to Roosevelt Elementary to see firsthand the problems that children face walking to schools, riding their bikes. I've seen it firsthand. However, I'm going to contradict myself. Councilor Miranda has some valid points. One point is, we are a city that loves our trees. There are trees planted in the city's right-of-way that the city owns. We now want to come along and put sidewalks in those right-of-ways. Vic, who's gonna pay for the removal of those trees? Is that Park and Recreation?
So, Councilman, I wouldn't assume that trees will have to be removed to replace sidewalk necessarily.
And Vic, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off and you're assuming. There are going to be grand trees that are going to be in the right-of-ways that for these sidewalks to be properly built, that if these sidewalks don't have to go off that right-of-way and into somebody's yard, that tree is going to have to be removed. So, Vic, go ahead, proceed. I don't mean to cut you off.
So, we have many grand trees in the right-of-way throughout the city. Building sidewalk and removing grand trees are inherently in conflict. Where possible, and every time possible, we try to preserve grand trees. This is also part of the code. So it's a matter of where these grand trees exist, what the priorities are. And I keep going back to the priorities because the plan, to Councilman Miranda's point, is important. And our priorities begin with schools and vicinity of schools. Then it also includes ADA, persons with disabilities, access to transit, major corridors. And so as we follow these priorities, we're going to come across these challenges, with or without this proposed ordinance, even with the ordinance that we have currently. So these are two separate conversations that are not necessarily related, but these are challenges that we do face, and they're real, and we deal with them on a case-by-case basis.
And with all due respect to you, Vic, when I went to Roosevelt Elementary, every property that did not have a sidewalk going to that school had a tree in the right of way. Now brings me to another point. We're talking about frontal, whether it be 50, 60, 100. What happens when it comes to a corner lot that not only has a 50, 60, 100 foot, but they also have a 100-foot side? Now we're talking about two different areas for sidewalks. Council members, I want to see this ordinance passed, but there are still a few questions that need to be resolved. Thank you, Vic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would just like to say, I've talked to a lot of community members about this. We've received hundreds of emails about it. The first conversation I had with Emily Hinsdale from Sidewalk Stompers was maybe 3 years ago about it. And the problems that were just mentioned are real problems with kids and families and people with disabilities and others. Sorry, taking risks every day because there are not enough sidewalks. This program is not going to solve the sidewalk problem. It's a little part of the fix. The bigger issue is we've got to put more of our budget into sidewalks. We've got to be more serious about it, and we've got to put more money into the neighborhoods. For too long, downtown and other areas got all the money, and we need to make sure we put money into our neighborhoods, and in particular with sidewalks and better roads. This is a small fix, but I'm in favor of it. We've had at least 2 years, even though the motion maybe was made a year ago, we've had at least a couple years to discuss this and debate it. Staff's had plenty of time. All the parties have had time. I say we go forward now. The last thing, though, is that it doesn't mean in the future we can't modify something. One option I was thinking about overnight was the industry says that they can build things cheaper than the city, and I know sometimes in deals the city will contract with builders. I wonder, not for today, but I wonder in the future, is there some way if the builders can build sidewalks at a cheaper cost, is there some way that the in lieu of could also be building sidewalks in lieu of, and maybe instead of what the discounted rate would have covered, maybe it's slightly more, so we get more sidewalks for our money than we would have with a higher rate if we made them pay it. But there are lots of ideas that we could add in, and I hope we encourage and continue the conversation so that we can make it fair to everybody and also try to fix the sidewalk problem as soon as possible. Thank you.
Can I read the ordinance?
Nope. I'm talking to you, sir. Mm-hmm. You know, it's something that's needed. Ms. Noreen Copeland calls me every day in East Tampa about on her street about sidewalks. every week she calls me. She's probably listening right now. And I've sent Mr. McCray and Vic her complaint about her street. But the question I really have, I don't see a plan. I know we're going to have challenges, but I don't see a plan in place for some of the challenges. That's number one for me. Number two, if a builder opts out to pay in lieu, who's going back making sure he's paid, he or she is paid? Who's handling that to know that that's being done? I mean, my thing is, if you're going to pay, you should be paying that up front. We should be validating that money is going where it needs to be going. And you shouldn't get what I call a certificate of occupancy until it shows you paid it. So I'm just curious. I don't see that in the order. I'm just wondering, how does that work? Abby or Vic? I see Abby jumped on, so.
Good morning, Council. Sorry, good morning, Council. Abby Gilly, Director of Development and Growth Management. With this modification to the code, there is accompanying that a new form that is being submitted into the Acela system with any building permits. It will be identifying whether or not they are requesting the exemptions that remain. If they are requesting that exemption, that fee will then be associated with the record at that time, once it is determined that they are eligible for the exemption. That fee will then be associated with the record, and we will be tracking that. And that is what Vic was alluding to earlier, that we will be tracking that, and we will be reporting that back to you. With over 14,000 residential permits in a given year, going back to try to find out by hand and looking at each residential permit site plan was a bit cumbersome, but as this issue has evolved and we have come together to coordinate on the matter, we have, that form is already in place, and also that tracking moving forward is now in place.
All right, but still, to answer my question, is
It's a CO would not be issued, sir. All fees must be paid. The permit wouldn't even be issued.
because I didn't see that in the, maybe I overlooked it. I didn't see that in the ordinance.
That's not in the ordinance. That's in our operations as we do business. All fees are assessed prior to the permit being issued. All fees are paid. So that in lieu fee would have to be paid.
Shouldn't that be in the ordinance though?
Typically, it's not. I would let legal speak to that.
Well, yeah, I want to find out because I don't want to lose money this time around. I mean, I see the attorney conference room because I don't want to lose money. I'm going to support. So I want to make sure we're gonna get our fair share because my understanding is we lose a lot of money because people don't pay and we don't track it to make sure they're paying. So if this is going to be the case, if it looks like it probably is going to pass, I want to make sure that we've got something in place or in this ordinance so people can know that you're not going to get a certificate of occupancy or permit until you have paid into this fund, and that way we got our money.
So, Chair, if I may, the ordinance does include that we will present annually a report on all of the collections and all of the deployments that were done on an annual basis. Now, should council choose or prefer, we can do it twice a year as well. I'd just also like to caveat that some of the form changes that we're working on with development and growth management, those will take about 6 to 8 months. I've been told by summer of next year, those will be ready to go where we'll be able to track these things and start reporting on them. So the end of next year, we'll be able to report on a 6-month basis as needed. But there is tracking, and that is part of the ordinance as an annual report.
Yeah, I understand the annual report. I'm saying it's always who's watching the house now. Yeah, you can give me a report later on, and I've got all these people who ain't paying. I'm trying to figure out who's gonna watch that now to make sure that people are paying. Because then when you have your annual report, it should say everyone's paid.
Well, Abby, isn't it similar to?
It does.
Okay.
Right. It's similar to any sort of fees.
Everything comes through us. When you're putting in your building permit, let's, for example, use a new single-family residence. That residence comes in, there's a 42-inch grand tree immediately in front of the property. They are going to be requesting the exemption. We would review that requested exemption form, why the exemption is being requested. We would ensure, based on the site conditions that exist and they are eligible for the exemption. At that time, if the exemption is issued, the fee is assessed. The permit will not be issued until those fees are paid. We have a way to track that.
Okay.
And we will be, tracking it moving forward. One, that the record, a cell is a record-keeping system, that the record has that form, and that fee has been associated with that record, and that fee has been paid.
All right, thank you. Mr. Citro, and then we'll bring it for landing.
Thank you very much. You're talking about how the fees are collected. Well, this report also shows how all those collections are being spent.
Vic.
That's what Vic was just saying to you. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Dingfeld, I'll let you crack at it and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, and I just wanted to stress to Mr. Miranda that, and Mr. Citro, this is first reading. As Mr. Shelby tells us often, there's opportunities, and that's why we have second reading, if something changes. But for now, I'm going to read the following ordinance, 2021-8, modifying chapter 22. And for first reading consideration, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, relating to sidewalk construction and the Sidewalk Trust Fund, making revisions to the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Streets and Sidewalks, amending Article 1, Administrative Provisions, Division 3, Fee, Authority, and Types, Permits, Inspections, Subdivision 3, Sidewalks, Section 22-103, when new sidewalk construction is required, contributions to Sidewalk Trust Fund in lieu of constructing a sidewalk. Amending Section 22-104, Sidewalk Trust Funds, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
Mr. Maniscalco has seconded. Discussion?
Can I speak on the ordinance? Chairman, I will not be supporting in a first reading. Hopefully by second reading, they've addressed what the plan is. I want to see a concrete plan of where they're going to put the sidewalks, not just so we're going to have a plan. I don't go for that. Number one. Number two is that there's also a state statute that requires you, once you collect monies, to have it done within 3 years. I want to see that plan, how they're going to do it within 3 years once they get the money. Where's it going to? If I pay a tax, there is no sidewalk where I live. But there is one across the street that was done in a conjunction on a deal with another hospital years ago. And people do use that sidewalk to walk their dogs and other things. It's incumbent upon me to say that, yes, that value of the house is not the value of what you're going to sell it on, but it's the value that's assessed by the tax assessor's office, whether that 50% kicks in, I guess. I'm not sure it is or not. So if you build just, you have a child, and you have a wife, and you have another baby coming, you want to build a family room and a bedroom extra, you know what? It may meet the 50% increase on the value of the house, because the construction costs have gone so high, and the value of the house is still there because of where it's located at. If it's located in another district, the value of the house would be much higher. Okay? So I want to find out all that information. I got to cast a vote that's going to be here for historical times, and I want to make sure long after I'm gone that I voted the right way. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Vic, I agree with Mr. Miranda. I sent you a list from the Tampa Bay Building Association with their questions. We're short of time, but I'm going to support it today, but I want to meet with you to make sure I understand what they're saying in their briefing, to make sure I'm right in my assessment, and making sure also that we do have a plan, because even if we're going to implement this, nothing's ever perfect, but we got to have some type of roadmap to make sure we're going to get where we're going. All right? All right, there's been a motion made. Mr. Dingfelder has read it. I believe Mr. Maniscalco seconded. All right, roll call.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Citro?
I am going to vote yes. However, as my learned colleague, Councilman Dingfelder, said, there is a time between first and second reading. There are still some unanswered questions I have, and as I always strive for, is called common ground. And I am hoping that everybody involved, everybody from council to staff to sidewalk stompers to Walk Bike Tampa to TICO, comes to a common ground. Yes.
Miranda?
I've already stated my position, no.
Dingfelder?
Enthusiastically, yes.
And Goods?
Yes.
Motion?
Again, with the stipulations from second reading, I need to be clear on some of those items, Vic. We'll vote yes today.
Motion carried with Miranda voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 2nd, 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
All right, gentlemen, it's already 12:30.
We've got
well,
1:30.
No, we have a 1:30 time certain. We have a time certain at 1:30. Okay, all hearts and minds, we're adjourned.
I cried just like a baby all night long. Oh, I need somebody here. I need somebody here in my home. Oh, there. Right now I know she's a good girl, but at that time I just didn't understand. Oh, I know she's a good girl.
Buccaneer Conquest. What happens, what could happen when a modern American city is invaded and captured by pirates? Here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, hard by the Spanish Main, can answer that question. Tampa, west coast of Florida. It is also Florida's leading port and the industrial center of the state. Yet, Tampa also enjoys another distinction. It is the only city in the world that is certain to be invaded and captured by pirates every February. Things like this have been happening in Tampa Harbor ever since the Gasparilla Pirate Festival was created in 1904. Here we have a full-rigged pirate ship right out of the 18th century, hove to within